For those of you who come with curiosities, with questions, heed the warning, you should beware. For those of you who come in search of fright and scares, fear not, for there are plenty to share. Now as the feeling trickles down your spine, and your heart begins to race and your mind resides, close your eyes, step forth, and embrace the chill, as the wind dies down and the air grows still. Now you find yourself at the gate, and you realize there's no escape. Once you've crossed the domain, you found yourself playing a creeper's game. Let yourself sink, the time is just right, for there's a lesson to learn in Ghoul School tonight. Welcome to Ghoul School, Creepers. Welcome all.
Hi, RJ.
Hi.
How's it going?
I mean, I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm great. You know why?
Oh, why?
Because it's October.
What? It is?
Yeah.
Nobody told me.
Well, I'm telling you now.
Oh, good. Good to know. What does October mean?
It means Ghoul School, RJ.
What's that?
It's like the other podcast we do.
We have a podcast?
It only comes but twice a year.
Well, currently.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if that was ever intended, but currently, sure.
Sure.
What is Ghoul School, Jarrett?
It's a podcast where we kick back, put those criterions off to the side.
Ooh.
Talk about the things we're really passionate about.
What are those?
Things that aren't Rene Claire films.
Ugh.
Stan Brakhage.
Yeah. What else?
That Jubilee thing we watched.
Oh, God.
Oh, man. We're all past that now.
And what are we into now?
We're into, Ghoul School X.
Ooh, what happens in X?
We go to space. This is the space-themed episode. No.
Oh, shit. I hardly have any alien movies, Jarrett.
I have one. I guess that's in space. And it was a dud.
I didn't even put that together, or else I could have watched one of my alien flicks.
You could have watched Jason X.
I could have watched Jason X, but it's not... Well, I guess it's not a Friday the 13th, right? So it doesn't have to be watched on one?
Right. It's
or does it?
The whole month is like Friday the 13th.
I guess in a sense.
Yeah.
In a more literal sense, it's not. But I mean, in the way that you put it, sure.
It's symbolic.
Yeah, but I mean, when are we not being symbolic?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Creeptober X, hey?
Yes.
It feels like we could have planned something.
Well, it's not Creeptober X. It's definitely Ghoul School X. We don't want to confuse branding.
Oh, I see. Do you think anyone cares? Like, not in that sense, but do you think anyone's listening even?
I don't know.
We'll see. It's been a while since we put out a Ghoul School that wasn't Trauma or Full Moon Entertainment.
And those things that we did last year.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's that too, but
there's one of those things.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
Let's just jump to it.
We don't need to do any background on this anymore, right? We covered everything.
Go back to the beginning. You can hear all us reminiscing about our horror experiences, how horror makes us feel.
The secret origins of things?
Yeah, the secret origins. You can do that. You can figure it out. But you know what we should announce?
What?
We're on Spotify, RJ.
Is that good?
I don't know. I haven't seen any giant leaps in numbers.
Was that asked for by fans?
Somebody asked on YouTube, and I went, okay, and I made it happen. And now it's real. It's happening.
Did they at least ask in a polite way?
They asked in all caps. I don't know if that's polite or not. But
did it just say Spotify in caps?
Something like that. And
wow.
I went, it is now. I didn't even get a like back.
Do you think that they're Hidden Fortress fans, though, that person?
Maybe they
Probably.
can get to us that way.
Nothing gets to me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
No. So, have you done anything Halloween festive yet?
Halloween festive? I mean, I put up some decorations in my current workspace. I have all sorts of decorations. I have a toad. I have a giant rat. I got a severed arm. I dressed up a wall with some spooky spider webs and lots of spiders. It's pretty festive, right?
Not too bad.
It's not too bad. I mean, in terms of everyone else in the building that I'm at, no one else has Halloween decorations. So it's probably the spookiest of the rooms. That's pretty festive.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's not bad. It's not bad. No, I haven't had a whole lot of time to get around to the spook stuff. There was something really cool that we were gonna do this year, and I don't remember what it was. And this is just breakneck entertainment. This podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, have you done anything spooky?
No.
No spooks.
Haven't even put up a skeleton or anything.
What? You don't have any decorations out?
No.
Well, I think probably the problem with that with us is we got hit with that huge snowstorm to start off Creeptober, and it really put a damper on things, right?
And now it's like 20 degrees today.
Yeah, I know. I hope it lasts for the kids. But that's why I didn't put any of my outside decorations up yet. You know?
Yeah. Well, I know I've just been wallowing in my own filth, my own juices, watching horror movies as the pagan gods intended.
What's in the juices?
Me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like the essence of Jarrett?
No. I mentioned to my regular gaming group what I've been doing, and upon mentioning, it's like, oh, well, how many movies have you watched? I'm like, yeah, like 5 yesterday, 5 the day before. That was like the real horror of the month. was their expressions.
So how many are you at right now on October 16th?
I have logged 42 films.
Baby.
Yeah.
What's your all-time record for a Creeptober? Like 100 and some?
110.
Ooh.
that was
shit, man.
There was a lot of shorts in there. I was watching like a lot of all the ones that get name dropped all the time, and if you look up great horror shorts to watch this Halloween, I've watched all of them. And
were they all great?
No.
Oh.
People have a variety of tastes, and you got to watch them, figure out what you like.
Well, what's your taste? What's your variety?
Well, let's find out. Let's talk about some movies.
All right.
You want to get this ball rolling?
Yeah, I mean, I might as well. So I tried to start something, and by start I mean I'm doing it. I did it last year. I'm going to start the Creeptobers with a movie that starts with creeps. So I watched The Phantom Creeps.
Oh, with some Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi. He's
the fine Italian Romanian.
Bela Lugosi. Well, he's Hungarian, isn't he? Or is he? Well, Hungary and Romania, they have that. Yeah. The lines moved during World War I.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like to make things up.
That's 100% true. I read a book once. So Bela Lugosi. This is a 1939 serial that got, I guess, condensed into a feature film of 75 to 80 minutes. But its runtime on Letterboxd says 265 minutes, which is misleading. So I watched this. It's on Amazon Prime, and I'm pretty sure it's like an hour and a half.
It's kind of public domain-y too.
Yeah, it is on YouTube for like in entirety.
I think it is a Universal thing.
It could be. I don't remember how if it started that way.
But it's like if it was actually Universal, it's kind of. But it's always been available, or at least maybe the condensed version is.
It makes sense you saying it's public access because I feel like there's a few weird things at play here because it kind of copies a lot of other like Universal monsters or like sci-fi movies. It's got like a bunch of things kind of jammed together. So Bela Lugosi, Jarrett, is this mad scientist. And he just wants to take over the world. And he's got like all these inventions. He has exploding spiders. He's got this Gort style giant robot that he controls with like using power gloves, like 2 Nintendo power gloves he puts on, and he controls this giant robot that has like the worst grimace on its face. Like he just looks like there's a bad smell in the room, is how I would describe it. So he's got exploding spiders. He's got this giant robot monster that he sends in to intimidate people. And then at will, he can also he has a potion that makes him invisible. So he takes that too sometimes to sneak in.
Man, that's a lot of booking.
That's what I mean. Like I can see when you said this was serialized, I was like, that kind of makes sense because there's a lot going on in this thing. So he's like this scientist, and there's all these people that like work with him, but are also, he's kind of like out to get everyone, and like the police, or I don't know, the government is trying to come shut him down, and he invisibles, and then he gets his big robot and he sneaks away.
He's a real sovereign citizen type.
Yeah, a little. Well, he's Hungarian, Jared. You know, he's one of those Reds. And then there's also a side story in this about like Amazonian people, and like he found all of this stuff came from an element that he found that came from a crashed meteorite. Does it sound like a pretty basic movie?
It sounds pretty packed, overstuffed.
It's pretty packed, man. It's not bad. It's like, in terms of these movies, I would say it's probably like a 3-star movie. It's not anything. If you don't like old 50, like even pre-50 sci-fi, you're not going to be into this thing.
If you don't like great grandpa cinema.
Yeah. Like I was fine with it, but it was also because of the availability. Like I watched half of it, and then I put the other half on my phone and finished it when I was like cooking dinner or something.
Yeah, that's what Creeptober is all about.
Creeptober is all about. I have a couple of YouTube movies that I watched at 1.25 speed when I was either on the toilet or moving from downstairs to upstairs, which takes quite a while. So I'm getting them in wherever I can. I usually have like 2 movies on the go that are half watched just because of where I am.
Right.
So anyways, it was good because of its accessibility, and it's not bad, but it's not really, in terms of these things, I don't know if you'd get much out of it, but it is different. Yeah. It's got a lot of shit going on in it, so that's kind of neat.
You want to hear how I kicked off Creeptober?
Why don't you tell me?
I watched Circus of Fear.
So that's in my list, and when you brought it up, I was like, I was looking at my list, and I was like, I have that movie in there? I was like, what the fuck is Circus of Fear? Why don't you tell me about it and let me know if it's worth watching?
So I always... there's so much apprehension going into the month, you know, because
I see.
It's like, I want to kick it off with a bang, but you don't want to go too strong because you don't want to set unrealistic expectations for the rest of the month.
Right.
So I know I put together my list, my private list. I put it in the randomizer, and I just went, send it to me. Give me what I want. And there appears Circus of Fear. And I'm like, nice. That's got Christopher Lee. And it's directed by John Llewellyn Moxey, director of City of the Dead, which is a fantastic movie.
Yes, it is.
But you know what is not so great? Circus of Fear.
Okay, that's too bad. I might take it off because it appears... That's why I have this in my list, is because it's John Llewellyn Moxley.
Yeah.
Because I watched Taste of Evil, and I actually liked that quite a bit. So, but I have Night Stalker in there too. Maybe I'll give that a watch. Tell me about Circus of Fear.
So, Circus of Fear. Okay, what do you think Circus of Fear is? Looking at the poster, it's got this bag-headed man, and he's at a circus. And you're like, oh man, this guy's luring poor saps into a circus, and he's murdering them, butchering them left and right. But no, he's not. It's it opens up with a heist involving a bunch of stodgy British gangsters. They rip off a truck. They have a big suitcase filled with money. There's like a thing where they rappel down a rope from a bridge down to a boat. And you're like, okay. And then they go back to a warehouse, and there's some double crossing. And guys are like, you're taking this money out of town. It's too hot. And then he drives. He hits the road. And then he hides this money at a circus. Nice. And then someone comes along and hacks him to death. And then that person gets the money. But we don't know who it is. And then it turns into like drama and like back and forths at this circus that is not very fearful at all.
Is it a good circus, or is it one of the bad circuses?
It is a circus.
Okay.
Yeah, I was expecting luridness. I was expecting, I don't know, death traps, people being tortured, but like not even seriously. Just kind of more of like something with like a Vincent Price kind of quality, things you associate with that.
Right.
Christopher Lee, he wears a bag over his face because he says that he was horribly scarred and he can't show his face. And he's got a brother, but then, oh my gosh, here's some spoilers, folks. When they take the bag off, he's not scarred. He's actually the brother who's hiding under a mask, pretending to be like this non-existent brother. And it's like,
pretty good plan.
What's going on? What's happening? It's so. I should have taken a look at what my friends on Letterboxd had to say about this, because it's pretty well universally 2 stars, or 2.5, and even I think that's generosity right there.
That's too bad.
The reason I have it was in a box set with some Jess Franco movies. They're all produced by this one director, whose name I've got to know on here, Harry Allen Towers.
That's not a real name.
Oh, but it is. And Circus of Fear is real too. And they titled it right. They got people's butts in those seats to check it out, I'm sure. And they still are. They're still drawing us in. And then you watch and you go, that circus wasn't very fearful at all. It didn't induce fear once.
Well, maybe that's just like your opinion, man.
It is. It is.
Some people are just scared at circuses in general, and this might be someone's nightmare, this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Could be.
So after this very soft movie, I was like, nah, I'm not feeling it. I got to watch something. So I squeezed in this nice little 20-minute number that was on YouTube.
Ooh.
Called My Sweet Satan.
That sounds cool.
From 1994, directed by Jim Van Bieber, the man who brought us Deadbeat at Dawn, which I believe you still have never seen.
No, I've never seen it, but that guy's name is pretty funny.
Yeah, he seems like a wild man. You could take a look at his profile photo on Letterboxd, and it would reflect that. Okay. He also directed a Manson family movie. He's kind of like, where is he out of, like Cleveland or something like that? He's just a man from Middle America making these like kind of wacky exploitation movies with very long-haired, bearded men. Deadbeat at Dawn is like pretty exceptional. It's like a very trashy exploitation action movie. Manson Family is like unwatchable trash, I think. Some people have a soft spot for it. My Sweet Satan, it's kind of his attempt at doing a true crime like short, but it's also exploitation to the gills about this one particular case, kind of it's in the era of like Satanic Panic, but afterwards, of these kids who are like kind of like playing at being Satanists, killing cats at graveyards and being horrible human beings. But then it escalates into murder.
What kind of murder?
Of a guy around a campfire. And that is definitely the highlight of this thing, like at all. Like the whole thing, it's just like a bunch of like listless bad actors reminiscing about this man, and like it starts with him in jail after learning that one of the his cohorts hung himself in his cell, and because they killed this guy, and they show this killing in ridiculous, like almost hilarious detail of them like just stabbing him over and over again and then crushing his skull. It looks really cool.
It's good. It's not bad.
It's a pretty cool kill. Yeah, it's a pleasant gruesomeness, but it's like even at 20 minutes, it is barely worth a recommendation. I had to kind of watch it because it kind of fit into like my pet interest of the Satanic Panic stuff, and I just had never got around to it. And then I realized, like, I think at some point I thought it was like a full length movie, and then I realized it was only 20. I was like, okay, I'm sure this was like kind of like an understudy kind of project, or like he maybe had plans to make it longer, but he's barely been able to make like 2 feature films over the course of 30 years, and he's peppered it with some of these shorts. So he's trying.
We're all trying, Jarrett. We're all trying. Well, I mean, it doesn't sound great, but
no, it's not.
It was worth a try.
It's worth a try.
Yeah, that's what this month's about, right? We're just trying.
Right? What do you got for me?
Hey, you know what? I'll just go in my order. But so I watched Phantom Creeps, and I was like, yeah, that's a movie. And then I watched another YouTube movie. As I mentioned, a lot of these YouTube movies came in handy because of how easily accessible they were. So I watched Hell High. I thought it was fitting this year by this guy named Douglas Grossman. Mm-hmm. So it's his only movie. It came out in 1989. The tagline is, "The teachers are tough, but their exams are murder." So now the description is like half right, and then half of it like doesn't really has no meaning to the movie at all. It starts off, it says, a teacher with a paranormal gift and a dark past. There is absolutely zero paranormal things in this movie at all. So I don't know like where that came from. But here's the deal, Jarrett. So we have this lady, she's a bio teacher, and she's really like reclusive. She doesn't hang around with the other teachers. She goes home every day, and then she's got a really hard time with the kids because the kids are just real pieces of shit, and they're always like not paying attention in class. So she's always kind of like freaking out at them. Then there's this one kid that reminds me a lot of you. His name is Dickens.
What's that?
Dickens.
Yeah, okay. I know where this is going, but continue.
So this guy's not in any other movies. They got some good names in this. There's Dickens, and then there's John, and Queenie, and Smiler. Like they got some good names. So Dickens is like the leader of this greaser gang, and the teacher, she like yells at him one day, and he goes and he like almost beats her up in class. And then the bell rings, and he's like, "We ain't over, teach." And then he like knocks all her shit over and leaves. And then what they do is this group, they're like, "We need another member. We don't have enough people in here." So there's this ex-football player. He quit the team for personal reasons, but all the football people are mad at him now. They all walk by and they're like, "You coward." They're like, "You quit the team. That's a real coward's move." And it's like a really weird thing to pick at, like that specifically, but they're like, "You coward." So the gang of greasers takes him in. They absorb him. And this guy's hanging out. I think his name's John. He's hanging out with the Dickens now. And they're just hanging out after school. And they're like, "Hey, we're going to go down to the swamp. And we're going to go see what's up there. But first, we're going to follow this lady home." So they follow her home to like, she lives in a cottage in the woods. And Dickens goes and looks in her window, and he sees her undressing, Jarrett. And he's getting plans. He's like, "Man, there's no other houses for miles. And this lady is actually a fox, but she's a real uptight bitch." That's what Dickens says. I forgot to mention.
This is where he's like me.
Yeah, just like you and everywhere, especially later, but I'll get there.
Oh, okay.
I forgot to mention the incredible opening to this movie. So it sets the stage for why she's like so like apprehensive and like towards other people, and like why she's so shut in. So this movie starts, there's a little kid down at, like, it's her, she's down at the swamp, and she's playing in this old like shed, and then a motorbike pulls up. It's a guy and a girl. So she like hides. She's like, "Oh shit, I shouldn't be here." So the guy brings the girl in and like rips her tits out. And then he's like, "We're going to bang right here, baby." And the lady's like, "I don't really want to do it in this shed in this swamp." And the guy's like, "Fine, whatever, toots." And he pretends to leave, and then he comes back to pick her up. The little girl who's the teacher, she gets really pissed off at this. She's like, "This guy's a real piece of shit." So she fills up this bucket full of mud. And then as the people on the motorbike try to pass, she's like, "I'll stick it to this guy." So she throws all the mud in his face, and they crash on this like these old like spikes. It looks like an old fence, and they're horribly murdered. And they look at her and they're like, "Why? Why?" And she's like, "Uh-oh." So she takes off. So then the swamp has this reputation that like a ghost did it or something, but it was just her. Okay, so fast forward, Dickens sees her. So now him and all of his lackeys, they have a plan. They're like, "We've had it with this teacher. She sucks. We're going to go to her house and we're going to give her a scare, Jarrett, real good." So they go to her house. They like climb up on her roof and they start stomping on it. And then they're outside the windows with masks and they're like, "Ooga booga." And they're doing all this like spooky stuff. And she's like terrified because she has PTSD from when she killed those people. So she goes and hides. And then they go to leave. And this lady's friend comes who's just like, I thought you were going to come out tonight. And she's like catatonic. So she's like, here, take a Quaalude. It'll help you sleep. You need this.
Yeah.
So they Quaalude up the teacher, Jarrett. And then Dickens decides to go back, and he sees her in a vulnerable state. And he says, I'm going to teach you a lesson you'll never forget. So he begins to undress her, Jarrett. Then what happens is the other teenagers come back, and the teacher gets the strength. She doesn't get raped. It's almost there. She gets the strength and she throws herself out the window. And then she's on the grass now. And now it's these 4 high school kids in her house. And they're like, shit, what do we do now? Because she's dead. There are some other twists and turns that happen later. I won't spoil those for you. Suffice to say that Hell High is actually a pretty good show, Jared. Running in at a hot 79 minutes. Oh. You get high school shenanigans. You get very strange scenes. Like the opening is really strange. You get another scene that's awesome where like they drive their convertible onto the football field and intercept a pass and score a touchdown. Like high school kids do. You have an assortment of those things. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by this, and I was like, you know what? Hell High is pretty good. I like it. So I mean, that's an RJ pick through and through. But I don't know how other people would respond to it. But if any of what I said interests you, I think you should check out Hell High. And
it's ready availability on YouTube. I mean, that just seals the deal.
Full and unedited. You even get the Grizzly Dickens almost rape scene on there. So it's all there, man. Yeah, Hell High is worth watching. Like, especially for dudes like you who are Dickens, but dudes like you who are running out of stuff that's actually not bad.
Right.
Yeah. It's not bad, man. I like Hell High. Have I interested you at all?
Maybe. It's like,
perhaps.
I don't know if it's cracked into my my master list or anything like that.
It's one to watch, though.
Yeah.
I mean, like, not to like watch literally, but one to keep an eye on, because who knows when it'll make a comeback. I could see Blumhouse reviving this.
Yeah.
You know how they like to do.
I know what they like to do.
Do you want to hear about any others,
sure.
Or do you got
hit me with another boy.
All right, I'll fly through some bad boys here. You ever heard of the Hitcher, Jarrett?
Yeah, I think so. This is the first movie from the massive pile of movies that you have that belong to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm prioritizing now. I'm going to try to watch mostly the physical content you have or the ones I can watch on the go. So The Hitcher, you lent to me. This is a movie I've heard about forever.
Upon your request.
Upon my request. Well, I've heard about it forever. Everyone's always like, The Hitcher. Mm-hmm. And then with Canadian icon Rutger Hauer dying this year,
yeah.
I was like, maybe I'll bump The Hitcher up a little higher. So I think this movie's first like 15 minutes are the best when they just pick up Rutger Hauer.
Yep.
And you see what he's doing as a hitchhiker and all the things that he does. And within the first 15 minutes, I was like, man, where is this going to go?
Yeah.
And then it keeps going. And I was like, okay. Because it gets into that territory where, like, I was able to...
If you were writing for a small newspaper, would your headline read something like, The Hitcher spins its wheels?
I would probably say The Shitter. Because that's more my brand, but
and then your editor would be like, "Hey,
hey, give me some more of that gold for Birth Movies Death. Let me hit it."
It would be like The Hitcher, more like
The Shitter.
Yeah,
yeah. So it definitely does. Like it. I think it runs all of the tension off in the first 20 minutes.
Yep.
And then it's not bad afterwards. There's still cool stuff, and I was able. You can have a suspension of disbelief to a certain point, but the thing that I thought was like too much was how he's just fucking everywhere. He's everywhere. He's at like every corner. He's always in the building, like following this guy. And I know that's like the point, but some of the times that he like pops up, like made me laugh. I was like, that's a little bit, that's a little much right there. Like, do you know what I mean? Do you remember some of those scenes where he's just there and you're like, how did he get there?
No, you pretty well seem like you had the same experience that I have had, where like the first 20 minutes are like, it's a 4-star movie. You're like, man, this is so great. And then it just runs out of ideas. And then you're just like, Now they don't even care. It's all about just like the gimmick of him, how you can't stop him, and he just always appears wherever he needs to be. And you're like, oh, okay, it's that type of movie. And it's like, is this a dream? Is this like is this like all in his head? It's like, no, it's actually happening. You're like, that's ridiculous. And it's like in a frustrating way, not in a fun way.
In a frustrating way, yeah, for sure. And it has some nice stunt work, like with the vehicles,
and it looks good too.
Yeah, it looks good. It's got nice stunt work. Like I can see why it has like a reputation a little bit, but it's definitely, I don't know. By the end of it, I was kind of like, I'm ready for this to be over, because I think the best part of the movie was that first 20 minutes, and then after that, I was just like, the shitter. You know what I mean, Jer?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear about 2 other Jarrett picks, or do you want to kick in for a little bit here? You got more than me.
Yeah, I'll kick in for a little bit.
Okay.
So I watched a movie from my physical collection.
Ooh, girl.
This is I guess Circus if here was too.
Yeah.
It's a movie called JD's Revenge. So this
is that you?
Yeah, I know, right?
Right.
So this is from 1976. Director Arthur Marks.
Okay.
So this is a movie that often pops up on horror blaxploitation movies.
Okay.
But there's nothing about this that really like made me go, this is a horror movie. But it's strange. Like it really kind of defies genre. So the movie opens up with a pimp who is he's kind of argues with his woman. And
in what way, Jer?
In a slaughterhouse. So there is so many cows getting their throats slit at the beginning of this movie because they're shooting it on location. So it's like they're just hanging out in the slaughterhouse like at night, and then they argue, and then he leaves. But then this other party comes along, slits her throat, and then he shows up and goes, "Oh my god!" And then another guy comes along and goes, "What have you done?" And then shoots and kills him. And so it is always assumed that this pimp killed his hoe. So the movie jumps ahead, and we're now here with I guess Glenn Turman, I guess, is the protagonist in this.
That's a weird name. Glenn Turman?
Glenn Turman. Yeah, I think so.
Gross.
So anyway, so he's our the hero. He's like he's an up and coming young man. He's driving cab, but he's also trying to get through law school. And him and his girlfriend, they have a great relationship. And then they go to a hypnotist at a strip club because it's one of those things where it reminded me, I was thinking about the movie The Graduate when Dustin Hoffman's character is trying to like make a bad impression with the romantic interest at the beginning, and he takes her to a strip club, and then she's of course horrified. But then by the mid-70s, everybody's always bringing their girlfriends to strip clubs.
You know, I had a similar experience with a different movie I watched later, but I'll tell you about that later.
Okay.
I got a strip club too.
So he gets hypnotized.
Okay.
Which I had a discussion about this with someone, and do you don't believe in hypnotism, right? It's
total horseshit.
It's horseshit. It's just the power of like collective experience. Yeah, and like
it's just like
people going along with things. See, that's the thing. It's like the type of person that would be willing to go up on stage to be hypnotized is the exact type of person that a hypnotist wants. They wouldn't want me, but I'm also the type of person that would never go up because I'm like, no, it's stupid. Like I would ruin your show, like because I would just be sitting there, and then that's the one that doesn't get filmed because otherwise, well, it takes away the magic.
Can I give you some insider info here? I was part of a hypnotist show at our county fair, like our carnival days.
Yeah.
Whoop up days.
Whoop up.
When I was like 8 or 9, and I got hypnotized, but I wasn't actually hypnotized. And when they kept me up there, I was surprised the whole time. I was like, should I be up here? I was like, I don't think I'm hypnotized. And I just kind of went along with it because I was 8. And then it was done, and they're like, how was that? And I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't think I did anything. So that's my hypnotism story. Right. Just to back you up.
Sometimes when you get hypnotized, sometimes you get possessed by the angry spirit of a pimp who just wants to right wrongs and correct his good pimp name. And he's a piece of shit. Like, he's a horrible man because so we get like, I don't know, we get this whole sequence. Like, that's the horror side. It's like the supernatural revenge movie, but that's about all. But we get these scenes where he gets all into pimp rages, and he proceeds, like, there's the one scene where he just like attacks his girlfriend and starts slapping her around, but like you can't help but laugh because he's putting on the pimp act. But and then there's a scene though where he brutally rapes her, and it's like, well, that's not fun. Like, it just doesn't make any sense tonally. It's very frustrating, and it's also almost too serious for what they're doing. And I was like, what's the story of this? Like, what are they going for? It's set in New Orleans, so it's got kind of that nice color to it. It's not a lot of movies, it seems, are ever really set there. They exist, but not a ton of them. But,
well, there's that.
This movie, no. It's I don't know. I didn't care for it. Again, this is one where you see some people have, like, they think it's all very solid, very good, but it didn't do much for me. So that was a bummer, because I bought this blind buy on Blu-ray, and it's not like, oh, now I have it. You want to borrow it, RJ? Did I sell it for you?
No, thank you. What do you think your stats would be for blind buys that turn out to be movies that...
man, I don't want to know. We don't ask. Hey, we who buy physical media still, we don't ask those questions.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Sometimes you do it for fun, and it's fine. But I got some blind buys, RJ. I'll talk about later. That we were like, wow, that was genuinely terrible. But on the illegitimate side.
Yeah,
I watched a new Brian Pollin film. Do you remember Brian Pollin? I mean, you probably won't, because it's a very generic name. So
it sounds super familiar.
Yeah, so Brian Pollin has directed a couple of picks from Creeptober's past. Like, if you recall, you'll remember this title, Cryptic Plasm. Do you?
That sounds cool. I don't remember you talking about it, but it sounds cool.
Or I'm pretty sure I watched this last year. Let me double check what month it was. Bone Sickness. Yes, I did talk about Bone Sickness.
Nice. Okay.
So that's what we're talking about. I watched one of his other films, and I've got one more to go for this month. This one, though, I watched, called Fetus from 2008.
I mean, it doesn't have the gravitas that, like, Bone Sickness does, but it still makes sense of message.
So the synopsis from Letterboxd.
Okay.
Kevin's wife passed away while giving birth to their firstborn child. He cannot cope with the loss of family and becomes obsessed with making contact with her by any means possible. It's like it's a classic story. I mean, it sounds exactly like a Stephen King,
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
So this movie stars Brian Pollin, who is I don't know, an average-looking red-haired man with a beard. He looks like the type of director. He looks like a horror movie fan, but he makes his own movies, and that's pretty cool.
Sounds like Ron Howard.
Bit bigger.
Okay.
A lot bigger.
Okay.
But he makes these movies. They have you take a look on, if you look at the poster art, they're gnarly. They're like metal album artworks. There's a couple of he's like that kind of softcore girl movies that I don't give a shit about, but these sort of like weird icky horror movies. That's primo. And yeah, Brian Pollin, his practical effects work that he's just cooking up in his basement and his garage are awesome. I love watching his movies. His gore and effects are so neat. This movie, it's kind of exactly the same as every other Brian Pollin movie I've seen up to this point. Just very enjoyable. It's men suffering and then crying out, and then not good acting, but we're not here for that.
No.
But it's like he's trying. He's shooting this stuff on his mini DV camera, working with some friends, getting those like local Midwest girls that are like into like convention culture, have lots of tattoos, that don't mind doing nudity, and he gets them in his movies. And they go for it, Sometimes they're giving birth to monster demons, and then sometimes outside of them comes like giant monster demon things that are running around that are awesome. It's like I wish I'd get this sort of imagery out of an Ari Aster movie, but this guy's kind of dropped off the map, which is kind of a bummer, because he hasn't done anything for about 5 years. And actually, what put this guy on my radar in the first place was what's his name? Bone Tomahawk. S. Craig Zoller.
S. Craig Zoller?
Yeah, he talked about this guy at some point, and I was like, I'll give it a whirl. And yeah, I've enjoyed every single one of these things, for better or worse.
Which one would you put at the top? Like, if I had to watch one, which would you say?
I would say probably, I think Fetus, because it's called Fetus. I think you might not have a good time. Though it's got a guy. I'll just say he reminds me of you, RJ.
Really?
Yeah, he's
kind of like Dickens.
He's a necromancer.
Yeah.
Or he owns like a really cool store where he'll like rents like gray market DVDs and occult books, and apparently he sells like books that necromancers are buying on eBay that are all typed out in Times New Roman font. It's very classy. But yeah, I'd say probably Cryptic Plasm, because it's about cryptozoology to a degree.
Ooh.
He's looking for but it is a snooze for like the first hour, but then the last 10-15 minutes are awesome. You couldn't help but love them. But that would be one, because I think Bone Sickness is another, like, I think it's too gnarly for a man with such a soft palate as yours.
Soft in like the literal sense, because it is kind of squishy.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give Cryptic Plasm a watch. That sounds cool.
That sounds good. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad I've sold you on Brian Paulin. His DVDs are available on his website. It seems like, sadly, Fetus, I believe, is out of print. But
do you work for this guy now?
No, I wish. I'd love. This guy seems really cool.
Yeah, kind of like
deranged practical effect monster movies.
Yeah, well, it's the same as how I would love to work with like Don Dohler.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Is he alive?
No, Don Dohler died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. That's cool.
All right. I'll talk about one more and then pass the baton back to you.
Okay.
I watched the first of this particular DVD line that I've got all the copies of now, called Casa Negra. This company was putting these out, and they were like Mexican horror movies.
Okay.
Which, like, there's like Mexico was putting out lots of horror movies back in the 50s, 60s, all very inspired by Universal horror stuff. But not a lot of it gets translated. But there's about 6 or 7 of these put out like 10, 15 years ago that I've now since picked up after the fact. This one I watched, called The Living Coffin. It is one of the rare horror Western movies, which usually is like a big get for me, because I love that stuff. I love Westerns and I love horror. Sadly, this is more in the vein of spoilers, I guess. It's a Scooby-Doo movie where people are like, it's like the cowboy rides in and it's like, oh, there's a ghost and it's killing people, and then the whole time it's kind of the the Lorna story, the crying woman, and you're like, they're trying to catch her, and then it feels actually at times kind of like an Italian Gothic movie, like Mario Bava stuff, like Black Sunday or Black Sabbath, and so you're like, well, but it never gets going, it never gets interesting. And again, I think I was watching this one right before bed, so it's at that time of night where you're just starting to check in your phone, looking for on Facebook. So, but you know what? Good movies, they take your attention off that stuff. It without fail. If your eyes start going to that, it tells you what you need. It tells you everything.
I agree.
So yeah, this movie. Once I say Scooby-Doo, you kind of know where it's going. Sure enough, it goes to Scooby-Doo territory, and it's like, oh, they unmask the crying woman, and it's a guy, and it's like kind of like a real estate inheritance type of deal, and you're like, oh, they solved it, and then they ride off on horses and they solve the case. Real missable stuff.
Well, I mean, all of this is missable.
Yeah.
And like, you know what I mean? Like life in general is missable, but Hell High isn't, that's for sure.
Right.
I'll skip that one.
Cool. Yeah, no, that one totally is not a recommendation.
Don't lend it to me, okay? Even if in like 2 years I'm like, hey, I want this movie, because I would
it's called The Living Coffin. It sounds awesome.
It sounds cool. Yeah,
and,
I've also
it's
like
cowboys, horror. Sign me up. Have you watched The Burrowers yet? I can't remember if I've lent that to you.
No, I haven't watched that one.
That's a good one. It's one of the good. It's one of the better ones.
There's another one. There is a horror Western on one of those streaming things.
Deadbirds?
I think it's not like this is gonna sound dumb. It's not Tombstone, but it's something like Tombstone. Oh. I'll look it up.
Okay,
it doesn't matter.
Well, before you start looking things up, what else do you want to creep on?
You want to hear about some more Jarrett picks?
Yeah.
You ever heard of Kathy's Curse, Jarrett?
I sure have.
So Jarrett picks in the sense that I picked them from you.
Yes.
I don't know what your opinion is on these movies. It seems okay. So Kathy's Curse is a 70s Canadian horror movie?
Yes, it is definitely
in a way.
Canadian.
Canada, France. France by way of Canada.
Yep.
Whatever it is. So this is a movie that I've heard about in pockets of the horror world for a while. It's like Kathy's Curse. That's a classic. And then people are always like, is it though? But then the people who champion this movie are always like big champions for it.
I believe some might call it batshit crazy.
Oh, see, once you pointed that out to me, you're like, you know how stupid that sounds? Every time I hear that now, it's like, that does sound stupid. Why do people say that? That's weird. Just say it's wonky. That's a way better word, right?
Wild.
It's wild stuff, man. This movie is wild stuff. The poster kind of gives away the first 35, 40, 50 minutes of the movie, so I won't read off those. This thing, when I was watching it, all it reminded me of was that Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, where Bart, it's like the Twilight Zone where Bart can do anything. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you got to make the boy happy whenever anything weird happens. That's Kathy's Curse to me. I thought this movie was okay. It's got like, I think it has some like dips into really good. Yeah. Whenever Kathy, I think is, whenever it's the two girls, like the living girl and then, see, I'm kind of forgetting now, but like, you know, the possession girl that's like kind of, or the other entity that like lives in her.
The aunt.
That's, I mean, yeah. The what?
Her aunt.
Her aunt. Yeah. Okay. So like the two play with them, or the play between them. I think there's some really good scenes there. Like when it shows both of them kind of working off each other. It does get into some ridiculous stuff though. Like I thought the scene with the old man at the table is so goofy when it's like he's like sitting there and he's like and he's just white knuckling it on the table and she's making like spiders and snakes and like rats crawl around. It's not bad, but it's like I found it was like, for how long it goes on, it turns into a joke for me because it's like, this is going on for so long.
I mean, this movie's incompetently made. Like, it's got some issues.
Yeah, so I see why it like appeals to people like that. And then like the dialogue too. There's I think, what is the first line in this movie where it's like, "Where's mom?" It's like, "Your mom's a dumb bitch," or it's like, "Your mom is a bitch." That's not me. Like,
no, that is dialogue. Even like as you say it, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, like, so that's the first line, and when I saw that, I was like, "Whoa, what do we got here?" And then like she repeats it, like, because there's another thing where like one of the kids says something and then she's just like, "All women are bitches." And I was like, I
love the 70s.
Okay.
It's so, like especially bad dialogue where it's like, but it's just like, it's so blunt. I mean, it leaves nothing to the imagination. It's just,
I appreciated it for what it was, you know. So like,
as far as possession movies go, and like this is all like that post Exorcist, everybody's like, hey, you know what's creepy? Possess little girls, because no one expects little girls to be evil. No one expects us to be evil. Oh shit, that reminds me. What? You didn't borrow Mausoleum from me, did you?
No, that looks good though.
That is. Oh yeah, it's very it's like it's an upgrade from Kathy's Curse, but it's kind of in the same nebula.
Right. Well, I mean, I will maybe next year. I'm really gonna make a strong effort to actually watch the movies you've lent me this year and previous. Nice. So I'm gonna
like Phantasm 2, which I believe you've had for 3 years.
Yeah, that one came with me on the move between houses.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to watch.
It has never stepped foot in my house.
Oh really? You bought it and then gave it right to me?
No, I mean, like at the old apartment, it was there.
Oh, I see.
But it's never been in this house.
So it survived 2 moves without being watched. Yeah. My move and yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna try. I'll try to watch that, and then I noticed Shudder. They have a Joe Bob where he does Phantasm 1, 3, 4, and 5, but 2 isn't on there.
That 2 of mine actually is I believe it's quite pricey at the moment, but I think
you shouldn't have said that because now I won't give it back.
Well, you can throw it in the toilet for all I care. That movie's crap, but you should definitely watch it.
Well, I'll watch all the Phantasms eventually. Yeah. I remember the first one was fine, but
yeah.
What was I?
You watched that Kathy's Curse, and
it's fine. Like I don't think I liked it as much as the people who are really into it. Like the dialogue is pretty wacky and it is goofy. It's got some cool stuff in it, but for the most part, I was like, yeah, I'm not mad I watched it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely on that. we're talking about tiering of like horror films, and that's like one thing. Like at this point, I don't think any of us have watched any like. There's like that tier A, which is a rare creature. That's those movies you're like, I would totally recommend people watch this. Then there's that B tier. That's maybe like for you where Hell High resides.
Yeah.
And then there's like C tier, which I think is fittingly Kathy's Curse, I think would be there, where it's like on that entertaining side of a C movie. And then there's like everything else where you're just like, no, you don't need to spend time with this.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Do you want to hear about a B to C movie that was also borrowed from Jarrett Duncan?
Absolutely.
From your buddy Lucio Fulci.
Oh.
You ever heard of The Devil's Honey, Jarrett?
Yes. Yes, I have.
So this is I followed Kathy's Curse up with this because this is another one of those aforementioned talked about movies.
Yes,
for whatever reason.
Somewhere we heard about both these things.
Some reason. I get it for the first little bit of The Devil's Honey. So up front, The Devil's Honey is a very strange movie. I wouldn't call it batshit crazy. It's just that I think like it's just an Italian horror movie to me. Like this is what I feel like all Italian horror movies are, to be honest. This one does some weirder stuff, but not that weird.
See, there's another one, The Night Child. You still haven't watched that? I'm always bummed out by like how many, when I sometimes start digging through the month and I see this, you have the stuff that you've borrowed, you've taken it's out of my house, and then I start going through. I'm like, he's still never seen this, son of a bitch.
Okay, well, you know what? I'll make you a deal.
He's watching Breeders and like
I'll make you a deal.
Ass Ghost and whatever, what have you.
Next Creeptober, I will do if we can get a Patreon goal of like $10. I will let you pick the entire month of October for me. 31 movies of your selection, and I'll watch them all. And they can be anything. It can be like Fetus or More Fetus or whatever. I'll watch. If you pick an entire 31 movies for me, I'll watch them next year.
That's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work.
Okay.
But I mean, there's all these movies. So anyways, this
movie's got a saxophone in it.
Yeah, and it's also described as sexual torture, which is kind of true.
Yeah.
So this movie's got a saxophone. The intro to this movie has a man and woman getting very intimate together by way of saxophone.
Yeah.
And not in the way that you would expect. I did send out some snaps to premium Patreon users. That's not true at all. I did send snaps to Ryan Nagel, friend of the show, though.
Who is not a Patreon in any way.
No, but he contributes in other ways. So
he does. He posts really nice screen caps on the Twitter.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, he's involved in the Creeptober. He's doing his part, as they say in Starship Troopers. So I sent him some snaps of that saxophone scene, and he's like, "What are you watching, dude?" I was like, "I don't know, man. I don't know what I'm doing anymore." So you have this like man and woman, and they have a real Sid and Nancy relationship.
Oh yeah, they do. Your favorite type.
Should I say what they're doing to saxophone? Or okay, so the dude is playing it right into her vagina, and that's just what they do. Like it's just he's just playing it right in there. He's like,
in between that dress.
Yeah, and it works for her, and they're like, oh, so much fun. They're in like a recording studio, and then right as they finish, they realize that it's the room is like full of other people, and they're like, oh no, there was people, or she's like, there was people in here, and he's like, what do you want me to? He's like, what am I gonna tell you, babe? He's like, when the mood strikes, you got to do it, and so it's like it's very strange. But he's also like super forceful. And so you get this vibe where like he's always forcing himself on her. And she's always like, I don't really want to have sex right now. And he's like, I don't care, baby. And they do it anyways.
That's very Italian.
I don't care. Just lusting after women. That is, as we've discovered on this podcast, that is the Italian way. So like it seems like he's really shitty to her, but she stays around for some reason. And then he has like some kind of like heart thing or whatever, and he gets hit, something happens and he has to go to the doctor, and he dies.
Is there like a motorcycle crash or something?
Yeah, maybe it might have been a motorcycle. Yeah, this movie's so far from my memory now. What happens to the guy at least?
It's like 2 weeks ago.
I know, and I haven't even watched that much. But he like so he has to have surgery, and then he's getting surgery, and then he dies. So this lady like holds the doctor accountable, because she's like, I loved him, and it's like, but he wasn't like super nice to you. So she abducts the doctor, and then there is some sexual torture in there, real Jarrett style. Like she kind of uses him sexually, but mostly it's just like he's naked and she's like just spitting on him and like throwing dog food at him, and you're just like, whoa, oh, woo. This movie's got like, for the Italian horror stuff, it's got some of the stuff that I like in there, but on the whole, this movie, I was just kind of like, I was a little bit bored with it because it just kind of like goes around, and you're like, all right. It's like sexy stuff. Like there's lots of sex in it. But then I don't know, like it's horror in the sense that she does kidnap this guy, but at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't really care.
Would you say that it brought sexuality back to the horror genre?
I don't think that's something that we need to be brought back in any genre. And frankly, I think that we should get rid of it completely. Not just in movies.
Yeah.
In
like everything.
Mass sterilization of everyone. But not just sterilizing, like completely dismembered.
No.
You know what I mean?
Things just got real here on Ghoul School.
Or it could be like, in Equilibrium when they all take that pill and they don't have emotions anymore.
Yeah.
Just that.
But
right?
For their junk.
For the junk. Yeah. So Devil's Honey is, I mean, I would recommend that opening scene, that first like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And you could see it and you'd go, ha, that's pretty kooky. It's pretty wild stuff. And then you'd be good.
Hey, RJ, I noticed that the poster art for this on the Blu-ray, it has a dog on it.
It does have a dog.
How does the dog fare in this Italian horror film?
Well, how did I log this? Dog violence, real animal death. I logged this one as. Okay. So I think I forced that down into my memory because I didn't even remember that as I was talking about that. But yeah, there's a 100% real dead dog in this movie. It gets buried, and I was bummed out with it.
Okay.
So Devil's Honey is not my kind of thing. But I think even besides my own hangups, I don't think this movie is that good anyways. But
no, it's kind of more of a like. It is very culty. Yeah, it's for the deep dive. Especially if you're a Fulci completionist, I guess it's great that it's on Blu-ray. I'm sure it's like the same quality as Murder Rock, which is a movie I have not yet seen. But I mean, like, there's like your top tier Fulci, and then you kind of work your way down. Yeah, if you're so inclined.
I mean, I think I've hit all the big Fulcis, so I'm pretty good. I didn't.
Now you can go back and rewatch the good Fulcis, and then get more appreciation for them. As I have had. Mm-hmm. But you know, movie will always stay meh. Zombie. Yep. Zombie is meh.
Yep. Yeah, it is. And again, I think like Zombie, Devil's Honey, Kathy's Curse. It's almost like the idea of the movie is bigger than the movie itself. Jared.
The act of watching.
Yeah, act of watching, and the act of watching. You see what I mean? See what I did?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what about you? Did you watch any movies?
Nope. No. I watched Dread. This is
Judge Dredd?
Just Dread. D-R-E-A-D. Spelled properly, unlike Dread. Are you familiar with this?
First time hearing about it, man, but the poster looks like shit.
Well, it's very generic. It is based on a Clive Barker short story, allegedly. Ooh. Or Clive Barker thing. So this kind of wraps up, I think, all the Clive Barker adaptations that are out there that I'd want to see. This is from Anthony DiBiase.
DiBiase.
DiBiase. That's an L. So I've seen one other of his films. I've seen this movie called Last Shift, which I think I watched last year, and I talked about how it starts off like really good, and like the filmmaking is fantastic. But then it goes down, like, starts doing like this. It has like a made up Manson cult thing, and then it just gets stupider and stupider, and you're just like, I don't like the direction this has gone. But like, it's always very frustrating. So I was like, I still wanted to give this guy a try and see if maybe that was just a miss. Turns out it wasn't. But I don't know if you've taken a look at his other filmography. He's got movies like Most Likely to Die. Extremity, which has got like a promising poster, but I already know how that's going to go. And he has this movie here called Casadaga.
It's got a cool poster.
It's something. And then
It's something.
look, she looks like it's like kind of a weird zombie looking blast. And a movie called Missionary. Is this about a murderous missionary? Oh, Mormon Love is Forever. It is.
Oh wow, that sounds fun.
That could be all right. All right. Anyway, so Dread. So Dread, synopsis from Letterboxd. 3 college students set out to document what other people dread most.
So, like, is this one of the Books of Blood short stories?
Maybe.
Because I could see it being loosely. Do you ever remember that story, like loosely adapted, where that guy would like kidnap people and make them do things that they didn't want to do?
That's exactly what this is. This is what this leads
where
to.
It's like the vegan that has to eat meat. Like,
well,
okay.
yeah, 100. Oh, that's exactly who you see in the poster. So this movie starts out, and it's 3 students. The one guy, his name is Quaid, which is a movie that only exists in movies, as far as I'm aware, unless you are like a manager of a sports check, according to Facebook.
Oh, a name, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
unless you're Randy Quaid.
Yeah, well, I mean, as a first name, though, which I'm assuming it is.
Okay.
Everyone calls him Quaid.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
He's like, something's obviously wrong with him, but like all blue-eyed, blonde-haired devils, people give those guys a lot of leeway, and they just kind of go along with them, even though he gives all the signals off. It's like, this person seems really dangerous and unhinged, but they keep going along with him, thinking, oh, he means well. It's like, no, cut these people out of your life, because he convinces these 2 other people to go along on this like Kinsey-esque experiment where they're going to just interview people on camcorders about what makes them afraid. But the things that make them afraid, they're just not hard enough for him. They're not doing it for him, for this Quaid fellow. Because apparently he had some interaction where he, as a child, watched his entire family killed by an axe murderer, and he felt very powerless about it all. The main character of this, his thing was like, his brother drove home drunk and died, and now he's afraid of cars. And then the girl, she's a vegetarian, and then she tells a story. And of course it's like, oh yeah, I don't eat meat because my dad, who raped me as a child, he worked at a slaughterhouse, and when he came home, he smelled like meat.
Unnecessary.
So you're like, oh, okay, so let's just double down on that, because it adds depth. The other thing in this is there's this girl that works in the library, and she's got this like crazy birthmark that like half of her is like almost completely black, where she looks like almost like that Star Trek alien, where there's like one side that's white and one side's black. This is basically her, but it's more organic rather than a perfect symmetrical cut down the middle of a person. But like, she's still like gorgeous. Like, she looks amazing, but like, she's got this birthmark, and it's always like, when people look at me, it's the first thing they always ask, and it's like, never been like that. You're like, that's not a bad idea, but at the same time, if they go they get into silly territory with it, because what happens is old Quaid, he submits this thesis project, and like the building they're doing it in has like an upturned mattress up against the wall, because it makes it look more like a Rob Zombie movie. And so the whole setup is like, then they have a falling out, but then he's like trying to make good on it, but now he's like, we have to go further with the project, and now he starts kidnapping people. And like, you have a scene where like, he's playing back the footage with the other guy, showing the girl like in a room that's like completely boarded up with a giant hunk of delicious steak meat just on the ground, and she's like refusing to eat it, and days pass, and now the flies are swarming in the rotting meat and the maggots it's like whatever, 10 days later she eats it. Her will is broken. He's like, see, everyone, and all the fear is a construct. And it's just like, oh. But there's like, so, and then there's this other guy, I don't even remember who this dude is, but he makes him go deaf. He puts like water jugs strapped to his ears, and then fires guns on both sides, so he destroys his eardrums. And he goes up to the hospital. But now the guy wants revenge, you see.
Yeah.
And then the other guy, basically, it's this very convoluted way. He constructs a way for him to like face off against another axe murderer. that he then can kill.
Okay.
And then he gets over his fear. But then, of course, the protagonist, he's like, really like, where is she? Oh, no. She's like, oh, no, she just wandered off. I don't know where she went. You're like, that's not how these movies go. And, of course, RJ, he kills the protagonist. Or actually, he allows the protagonist to get an axe to the chest. And then he watches him die. And then he drags his dead body down to a basement and throws him into a room where the girl is handcuffed to a banister. And he says, let's see if you can eat that. And then he throws a knife in there. And she screams. And then the movie ends. And it's like, sets up this like, didn't we just blow your mind? Now that Quaid's a serial killer? Isn't that fucked up? Like Saw? Because like the movie, like the poster is trying to go for that, as the kids used to call back in the 2000s when this came out, the torture porn era, where it's just about like cruelty and just unrelenting grimness. And like, I don't know, if I'd watched this when it came out, maybe I would have been maybe more impressed by it. But watching it now, I just like, I hate this. I mean, I think that's
fair.
And plus also the way the movie's made and the horrendous color grading. So everything like looks like crap. I just watch it. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't want this in my world. I don't like this tone. Like, it's stupid. And you're like, well, why wouldn't she just kill herself? Like, you literally just threw her a knife, and now she's trapped in a room with her boyfriend, like this guy that she liked. And now now you have to eat his body because you're a vegan. It's like, just kill yourself. Like, this guy's never going to let you go. Just fucking kill yourself, or like whatever you're going to do, just do that. And then you're done. And then he loses, and then you're dead, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it's like, they never go with that beat. You're just like, yeah, because before she didn't have a knife to eat the hunk of meat. Now she's so frustrating. And like, I thought about this movie a lot after watching it because it was just annoying to me. And I was like, what if I ever liked this? And then I started thinking about this era of movies like Wolf Creek, the Saw movies, Hostel. And then like on the flip, then you have like a really, I think, great movie like Martyrs, where it's like that movie works, I think, still really well because it kind of goes for it, where this just is like, it's like this could be Dexter to me, or like just like another piece of like cynical bad serial killer slop. Yeah.
Two things when you were describing the movie and you're like, why would you do it? Why wouldn't you kill yourself? Why does anyone care? I could only think about how the Criterion Creeps present Ghoul School and how they were for the longest time our most least listened to episodes. And I was like, School sounds good. And then two, that's kind of a bummer because I remember the stories and I don't think they put so much weight into like they way overdid it
because it's a short story. Now this is like, we got to make a feature film. We've got to make characters that you care about. Oh yeah. So Creepy Quaid, he's a painter and his paintings,
of course,
stink. Like they're so like, and he's like, he paints the birthmark girl, and then he has the footage of her like talking about the way her body makes her feel, and then also she gets rejected by the hero because he actually likes this other girl and has nothing to do with the birthmark, but she doesn't take it very well. But of course, it gets screened all across the campus, and then she freaks out, and then she goes and finds a bathtub and starts like scrubbing her like one half of her body off with bleach and like chemical.
Who gives a shit?
And you're just like, ugh. It's just like, and then she's walking around hallway screaming. You're just like, oh yeah, just like more added on cruelty. You're just like, this movie's, it's not one of the big problems too is it's not well made enough. It's not earned. I feel like this, I think it was like a better crafted movie in some way that it could be like, man, this movie's like real, but no, they just don't have the ability to get there. So, oh well, that was what was that on? Netflix? Amazon Prime, one of those two.
One of those. Yeah, it's too bad because I remember the short stories being really simple. Whereas, like, for the vegan girl, it was just like a steak. Like that was it. She didn't have to eat a fucking body or anything. And I think one of them was like,
that's the real. Isn't this fucked up?
Yeah, and one of them was just like a guy who was like hanging upside down or something, or he was just like tied to a table and it was like, well, you're not gonna leave, and like that was it. Yeah. And it was just him accepting death or something. So. Too bad, but that sounds lame. Yeah.
So my next movie, RJ, is a movie that we both have seen this month.
What? We did something
it's one
together?
Of the very few crossovers, I think, so far.
Wow.
And that is All the Colors of the Dark.
Where did you watch this movie, Jarrett?
I watched this on the Shudder.
Is this where we're gonna start our Shudder endorsement here, or
I don't know.
our unofficial endorsement of Shudder for the next like 5-6 films?
Oh yeah, is that what it is for
can
you?
be.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't realize that this was in your list too. Was
It
this
wasn't.
just completely
It wasn't.
unplanned?
It was completely unplanned. It was
Nice.
once I had the access to the Shutter and I saw that it was on here, I went, oh, I can watch this and find out if it's any good or not.
Cool.
That was it, because it's. I've talked about this before. My kind of weird relationship with Giallo, where like a lot of the time they're never as good as you want them to be.
Yeah.
And I've bought a bunch of these things blind over the years, and you watch them, and you go, that was okay, but they never draw you in. They're always like, they seem flatly shot. They tell almost the exact same story, and sometimes they're like, the story they tell is so convoluted that you just do not care about anything.
You can't follow
You
it.
can't follow it. And you're like, all the characters kind of look the same. It's like, yep, beautiful European women and like these like dudes with sideburns, and they're always like, someone killed somebody, oh, let's go talk to them, and they're all in the fashion world or photographers or media, and like they have these ill-defined jobs, but they spend no time at all ever actually doing these jobs that pay them so well, and they have these like very well appointed like living standards. You're like, how do they do this? Like, they're spending all this time like gialloing around, but like, well, no one has that time, and it's like, I'm so aware of it watching them, because they're always about the beautiful people doing stuff. And that's like, I mean, a lot of people watch movies to watch beautiful people all the time, but it's like, you gotta have a little bit more than that, you know. You can't just rely on Jeremy Renner, you know.
Well, who can? I mean, who can, Jarrett?
Who can? So, All the Colors of the Dark, blind watch for me. It's one of those heralded giallo movies. Last year, or maybe 2 years ago, you watched, I think last year, the wonderfully titled "Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key."
I watched that last year, and then I also watched Island of the Fishmen. So I watched 2 Sergio Martino movies.
Yeah, and you've never watched Torso, which has got an amazing title. Torso.
Yes, it does.
As well as I've actually also seen The Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, and I've also seen 2019, After the Fall of New York.
Where'd you watch that one, Jarrett?
Did we watch that one?
I think so.
Okay, because I know we watched some of these Italian post-apocalypse movies. I couldn't remember if that one was one. So that's what I've seen. So yeah, and most of those have like, all these movies have been like fine. That Your Vice is a Locked Room has a very awesome cat named Satan. Like, he's a beautiful kitty, and it's got the lovely Edwidge Finch.
The who now?
Edwidge Finch, who is also the protagonist of All the Colors of the Dark.
Oh, yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah,
because I don't make connections.
Who's like I don't know what you call a brunette bombshell.
Okay.
She is like a camera's best friend. Like, she looks amazing. Yeah. She photographs amazing, and like, she is like the wide-eyed like character you want in these types of movies. She just wanders around, and you're like, what's going to happen to her? She dresses great. She has amazing clothes. All these things. She's a real, like, kind of has that movie star quality. So anyway, All the Colors of the Dark. I like really, really like this movie.
I saw that.
And I think the big thing, I'll read the synopsis first. Again, it's very giallo-y. Jane lives in London with her boyfriend, Richard. Her mother was murdered when she was young. She recently lost a baby in a car crash, and she's plagued by nightmares of a knife-wielding man. Richard thinks that the cure is vitamins, while Jane's sister recommends psychiatric help. But a new neighbor promises that if she participates in a black mass, all her fears will disappear. Instead, it just seems to bring her nightmares to life. What a...
Kinda?
Yeah, the movie doesn't even play that way. Like,
the
way information unravels, it's like offhand, and it just kind of goes from there. This poster here on Letterboxd, it's like, it's misleading, because when you look at it, you're just like, whoa, is that like a Satan hand? It's like, is this gonna be a movie about Satans? And it's like, no actual Satans, but it's got Satanists coming out of the wazoo. I think like this, the cinematography, the way this movie's shot, the storytelling, is so good. The movie's like, the actual story and stuff like that, the characters, they're all kind of just there, but just from like a filmmaking standpoint, this thing is like awesome. Like I was like so into it. This checks like all my boxes of what I want to see in a giallo. And honestly, up until probably the very last like 5 minutes, this movie is like amazing. And then it has like the stupidest like thing to tie up everything into a nice neat knot involving a drug dealing ring. You're just like, what is this? Where does this come from?
Yeah.
Like it's so dumb. It's kind of like a letdown, but I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'll just pretend that part doesn't exist and focus on like all the stuff I love, the way it looks, the photography, the seeming randomness of the violence, the colors, all the costumes. Like this on a production value, this like or production standpoint, this thing's awesome. I was reading about Sergio Martino. I guess at the time, him and Dario Argento were kind of in a weird like back and forth competition, a la when people talk about, I guess, what the Beach Boys and the Beatles, where they were like having a back and forth with releasing albums, trying to one up one another. Supposedly Martino and Argento were doing that too with their movies, and I guess like Deep Red, some claim trump this movie. But that movie's like really cool to watch, but the story is like nonsense. Like it's like it has almost problems I was complaining about with giallos, where you're like, who cares? Like, why is this movie over 2 hours long? This is nonsense. This is only an hour and a half and has all that nonsense, but it's a little bit more condensed and looks great all at the same time.
Just like me.
Just like you, RJ.
Yeah, so I also think All the Colors of the Dark is a very good show. I didn't like it as much as you did, and that's only for a few different reasons. I also think the biggest thing for me was like those dream sequences I thought were so well done. Like I really, really liked those. Like the opening, you have that dream sequence. As soon as that hit, I was like, whoa,
yeah.
What do we got here? Like the way that they present that stuff is awesome. And then I also like the way that they play around with the editing a little bit, where it's things like one of the things that she experiences is when that dude is like walking into the room, but then it kind of cuts back and he walks forward again, and it cuts back and it shows him walking forward again. Yeah. And it just like, it happens over and over again. I really like that. I was like, that's a nice little like way that they kind of played around with how they just show what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really liked all that stuff. And then for some of it, like, the ending does exist for me. And then there were a few things that like at a few moments in it, like I found it got a little bit repetitive because it kind of goes over the same things a few times. And I was like, kind of like, let's hurry this up a little bit here. But I did really like the cult aspects to it. I was like, that's pretty cool.
You like that doc sacrifice?
I didn't like that. I did like the normal cult stuff
involving the woman being sacrificed.
Sure.
And the orgies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about orgies. Well, I don't like orgies.
So
but
that's that sexuality that you want to expunge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not huge into that, but I do like the cult aspect of it. So I thought All the Colors of the Dark was pretty good too.
Yeah,
pretty good too.
Yeah, like I mean, realistically, it's not. I just overlike it probably just because it looks so nice. And
I mean, it's fine.
Yeah,
you like what you like, you know. Yeah. I think it's good. I just didn't like it that much. That's all.
Yeah.
Know what I mean, Jer?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean, Jer?
Yeah. I also watched. I have another movie with color in the title.
What was that?
This was an H.G. Lewis, Herschel Gordon Lewis movie called Color Me Blood Red.
I see.
This movie is not as good as All the Colors of the Dark.
No?
No, it's about a mad painter, a killer artist.
What does he do?
He paints these like ridiculously just awful painting. Again, awful paintings. I should be keeping track of these things in my list as a tag. But so yeah, he writes these. He's like angry at his art dealer. He's got this like cute young thing as his girlfriend, wife, who just like always is walking around in like swimsuits and exercise outfits. And then eventually, he spills a little bit of blood on a canvas because one of the critics says, he's dealer or an art critic who's like a total art critic out of a comic book with like the little chapeau and glasses and a cigar holder. Says you need a little bit more color in your work. And when he's painting, he angrily like punches something and cuts his hand and gets some blood on the canvas. And they're like, oh, what, you got some blood on there? He's like, yeah, color. I need to put some color in my work. I need to do that. And he's like, hey, give me your finger, honey. And he cuts her finger and starts painting with it. And it's just like tons of blood. He's like, well, if you want more of it, just use some of your own. And then he gets pissed and he kills her. And then he uses up the rest of her blood to finish up his painting, buries her body in some sand on his beachfront property that he's got. And soon enough, he's now in the murder business, getting that blood so he can make more paintings to sell.
Is the painting blood bright red, or is it really dark red?
It is fire truck red.
But I mean, it would get dark though.
Not in a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie.
Okay, I mean that's fine. I'm not gonna be a dink about that, but I'm just
get brown.
Yeah, it would get all brown and like real like sticky and like crusty.
Yeah,
I feel like these people would have known that, but I guess that's not.
I guess like maybe when
gimmick.
This movie came out in the early '60s, this idea like artists using blood was like wild. I remember there was a comic book where like some like ashes of I think it was like Mark Grunwald got put into the ink of the print run, and you're just like, oh yeah. And someone, I think Kiss put some blood into the ink allegedly of a Kiss comic book. Allegedly. Once again, a lot of these ideas, you're like, isn't that crazy? It's got blood in it. You're like, yes, I have never heard of anything so crazy in my life. And so yeah, this is it splits its time between wacky killer artist stuff and then beach party with like these tchotchke couples that are hanging out by the beach. It's like, it looks so goddamn cold where they're shooting this stuff and they're like hanging out and they have to keep going into the water and you're like, it looks really cold. This is the wrong time of year to be shooting this footage. And then eventually they run afoul of the killer artist, and it's very Herschel Gordon Lewis-ish. You haven't watched any of his movies yet, so maybe that's lost on you what that means.
No, I mean I've heard of
these
Herschel
movies
Gordon
are
Lewis,
like
so
they're cheap. He's like a commercial filmmaker doing like industrial films, I believe. And then he just like, like insurance, and maybe he was selling insurance too. And then he was just like, hey, I can make a buck making movies. Kids like blood and guts and tits. And so he split his time between those things, and then sometimes he combined them, and those were where he really made money. The movies would travel around, going through drive-thrus, and people always would turn in because, hey, color me blood red. That sounds pretty cool. Blood Feast, 2000 Maniacs, The Wizard of Gore. These all sound incredible. The Gruesome Twosome.
Ooh, that's what some people call me.
And us, the podcast.
No, just me.
Just you? You're a twosome? Yep. All by yourself.
Some ways.
Some ways.
Yep.
So yeah, this was exactly what I expect. I don't think there is a 3-star Herschel Gordon Lewis movie, truly. 2000 Maniacs is a favorite of mine, but it goes on quite a long time.
I know what that's like.
What do you want to watch? What do you want to talk about?
What would you like me to talk about, Jarrett?
What's next?
Some Shudder flicks.
Okay.
You ever heard of One Cut of the Dead?
Oh, we want to talk about that now?
I mean, we can talk about that since you're here, and then I can talk about some other Shudder things.
Yeah, we'll just do One Cut of the Dead then.
All right. So this is a Creeps recommended film from Shinichiro Ueda.
He wrote in to tell us to watch this?
Yeah, he did. He's a big fan of the Criterion Creeps.
Wow.
He's like, hey, I think you'd like my film. This movie's been recommended by a lot of people. A lot of people say don't look into it. I feel like you could. I think if you know what's going to happen, I don't think it'll matter that much.
No.
When I was watching it, I will say like the first half hour, it was playing out, and I was like, "Oh, is this it?"
First 40 minutes.
First 40 minutes for sure.
This was the thing that I found annoying because I remember hearing from other sources saying it was like 20 minutes, and so I was like,
No.
I'm like, after the 20 minutes, I went, "What the fuck? Like, what are they talking about?" And then there comes a very clear marcation in the movie at the 40 minute, around 40 minutes. We were like, "Oh, okay." There we go. Now we're getting into the gist of this thing. Yeah,
and like I think so. That's what it was for me too. Like it's definitely like about 40 minutes, and I was watching it, and I was kind of like, "Is that all it is? Is like that? That's the gimmick?" I was like, "That's not really anything." And then it does switch it, and then even when it did flip, I was like, "Okay, let's see what's going to happen here." And then it goes for a little bit, and I wasn't even on board yet, but I think it's in just like the last half an hour when things actually start falling into place. I was like, okay, I see what people are talking about. I said, I see why this is something that everyone is like real hot to trot on.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're just skirting around that. That's fine. But I liked it. I thought it was good. I think it's one of those movies that it takes a while to get there. And once you're done, it's worth all the time. You're like, oh, okay, that was very good. But I think it would be a tough sell for people who like I wanted to watch this with Andrea, but I already know, like once I finished it, I was like, it was really good. If she watched the whole thing, she would like it. But I know she wouldn't, because a half an hour in, she'd be like, I'm not into this. Even if I was like, no, it's going to get into something else. And then she would be waiting. And then when it did switch, she'd be like, oh, is that it? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I guess. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because even
like,
getting to probably like the good part of the movie, that only really makes sense when you've watched the first 40 minutes. Like you have to watch the first 40, and then like the next 15 minutes are like nothing special at all. Like it's really, I don't know. I wasn't that into that sequence where it's like assembling the team, and then you get to the actual, okay, now you get to watch. Even tiptoeing around this, you get to now it's the making of.
Yeah.
And that stuff's really good. And it pays off really well because you realize what's coming next. And you're like, oh, that's really good. That's funny. It's kind of like this movie actually, I was thinking of it as like, this is like a good trauma movie. It's like, if this was like, it's what you wish Lloyd Kaufman would have gotten to. And it was like, it's like if you combine like, because you have the actual movies that he makes, like, say Terror Firmer, but then you actually when you actually watch those making ofs of like Farts of Darkness, and you combine those things, it's like that's what this kind of does.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I thought the exact same thing, and I was gonna be, my review was gonna be like, hey, did you like Farts of Darkness? Because you'll love this thing. And I haven't even seen that, but when you were talking about it, I was like, it seems like that's do you like making ofs more than actual movies? Then do we have something for you?
You know what? The one thing, and we'll talk about it if we get to the very last thing I watched up to this point. It's got a drone shot right at the end of it, and it bums me out now.
I've seen a lot of drone shots.
I hate them. I hate them so much.
This month.
It's like, I know we all can't afford helicopters. It's not the 90s. But man, drone footage looks so cheap to me. It's like, because anyone can get one, and now you're like, hey, let's take this shot directly above things.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me that much, but I did notice it. And then, like I said, in some of the other movies I watched this month, I was like, oh, drone.
It's the color grading of this era. When like I'm serious. Like in a very short order, people are going to be like, "Oh, drone!" Like it's going to be a thing because I think we're just ahead of the curve, and I don't know. I get like I mean, when you're doing cheap movies, like small budget things, you use the tools that are available to you to try to add some value to your movie and get those shots in. But they just, I don't know. It's like putting a VHS filter over your footage, or like de-aging your stuff, because you're like, we can do it. And you're like, yeah, now you watch it and you're just like, that was a big mistake.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
not like a Steadicam. Like when people put in like actual really well done Steadicam footage into the movie, it looks great. Drone footage, no, it never looks right because it's not fast enough. You have it's only a certain kind of height to a shot, and it's just like it takes me out of movies every time. But but yeah, One Cut of the Dead was good. I didn't love it.
I liked it.
Like once it gets to like the last half hour, well done, because I mean I'm a big fan of making of sort of stuff, and and there's like during the end credits, they kind of have like even like the added footage of like how they shot this, because it's like, oh yeah, because you kind of forget you're watching the making of, but it's like, no, they're actually still making a movie. And that's like the editing and stuff like that is really great, like how they constructed it. It's a really well done movie. But it at this point I'd be like, beyond like being that's cute. I wasn't like super surprised by your rating of it. I was like, that's usually how Jared kind of like falls in line with this stuff. I liked it.
like, and it's like I said, I think you gotta really kind of go with it. Not that any of it's like not entertaining or anything like that. But you do have to fully commit to it.
It's and then at the end of it, talk.
It's got a lot of diarrhea. So I was big into Diarrhea Man. I liked him quite a bit. And yeah, like that last half hour I think is phenomenal. So I really enjoyed it for that bit.
Phenomenal.
But you do have to phenomenal, as the kids say. You do have to wait for it though. And it's like I said, I could never show like Andrea this, because I know she would, an hour in, she'd be like, this is lame. And then she would just leave. And I'd be like, well, it gets better. Like, there's a half hour left. But she would be so like out of it but whatever. Hey, you want to hear about another Shudder exclusive?
Absolutely.
You ever heard of Tigers Are Not Afraid?
I have heard of this.
From Isa Lopez.
Yep.
So here's a movie, Jared. From people from the country of Mexico. And this movie is some people who are like, they saw Pan's Labyrinth and they're like, whoa, we should make that.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again.
But
slightly different. And it's like, hey, you ever seen The Devil's Backbone, Jarrett? What if we made The Devil's Backbone and Pan's Labyrinth?
Wow. If I was GDT, I'd be like, where's my lawyer?
I wonder if he is interested in his lawyer.
Probably not.
Tigers Are Not Afraid. It's pretty good. It's a well-made movie. I wasn't super into it, mostly because it was probably poor timing for me, because Creeptober, I just want stuff like Hell High and just sleazy things. And this is more prestige format, I think is what they try to do. It's got
like a spine to it.
Yeah, it's
on the shelf. You're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, there's that.
I want that in hardcover with like that little like fabric bookmark.
Yeah, this is exactly how this thing.
Sometimes you want a soiled paperback.
I mean, that was my nickname in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So Tigers Are Not Afraid. It's about some orphans in Mexico, and it's all about like gang violence there and how gangs and cartels are going around and killing parents and stuff like that, and killing orphans. Mexico. So you have these gangs of kids in Mexico, and they're kind of like they're around, but some of them get abducted and they're like, oh, well, that orphan's gone. Or it'll be kids and their parents will get abducted and it's like, oh, you're an orphan now. And they kind of like roam around. And then one of the orphans during a school shooting, like their teacher slips her a piece of chalk and she's like, breaks it into 3. And she's like, you will have 3 wishes. So now she is a genie and she like wishes stuff. And it's all kind of, it's all metaphor. Kind of, yeah. And like the other big element to this is there's like graffiti all around, and it's like there's this like metaphor for tigers and like how orphans have to be tigers, because it's like you gotta own it, I guess, Jarrett. Mm-hmm. But so there's an area in here where it's ambiguous to a point and it's debatable, because the girl makes wishes and things happen, but it's also kind of like, yeah, but none of that's actually happening. It's just coincidental that things happen. So you get into like that kind of territory, and it's the kids run foul of the cartel. So it's a cat and mouse, tiger and orphan, tiger and drug dealer, I guess.
Yeah.
About the kids running away from the drug dealers. It's not bad. Like it's a pretty, like I said, it's a well-made movie, but I think it was poorly planned on my end to watch it during the Creeptober season. I'm just on their page and I just scrolled down really quickly and I saw Hooptober everywhere. I've mentioned before, I think Hooptober is total bullshit. So during the Creeptober season, it wasn't the best pick, but that's my bad. Oh well. Yeah. Do you want to talk about some more movies?
Sure.
Or you want me to?
Sure.
Go?
I can do this.
Yeah.
I got movies.
Okay.
I've talked about 9.
I know.
Whew. So, Beyond Dream's Door.
Okay.
This is a weird one. This is a movie that it reminds me of The Evil Within.
Okay.
Remember The Evil Within? That Oliver Granger pick? That movie made by a dead what was his addiction?
Oh my God.
His drug addict. That wild movie, and it seems like it's a movie made from like a man who like was told what movies are like. That's what Beyond Dreams Door kind of feels like.
Okay.
Ben Dobbs is a lonely college student who has never had dreams of any kind. This all changes for Ben when he starts having a series of sequential and terrifying nightmares that become true in his waking life. As he reaches out for help, he is also expanding the net his nightmare demon is spreading for new victims. Ben's challenge is to survive this new surrealistic world beyond Dream's Door.
Okay.
So this movie,
I'm with you.
Yes, this movie plays by its own set of rules. It's got some pretty cool gore. I'm not gonna lie, but it didn't have my full attention. But every once in a while, I'd look over and be like, "What the fuck?" and rewind it because I was like, "What? What's this? What's this all about? What's going on here?" Lots of amateur actors, at least non-professional actors. I don't know. You got characters in here like John Dunleavy playing the janitor. This is definitely a movie that's a victim of the fact that I watched it, like 2 weeks ago, like 30 movies ago, and I don't remember specifics anymore. But if you're able to find this obscurity, put it on that list and be like, why should I watch this? Because even right now, I'm not sure. All I know is that it does have some pretty standout practical gore effects and is probably going to be very unlike anything else you watch. And
Would this be... Sorry, keep going.
No, and it fits into this, like, into movies that shouldn't be, but like they're but they're kind of like they're well made enough. It's definitely not an Evil Within level thing where you're like, holy shit, this like stop motion stuff's incredible. This doesn't have that, but the practical effects, I mean, I swear by those. Bar
none.
Yeah.
So what was it called? The Dream Door?
No, it is called Beyond Dreams Door.
Okay. When you said that, I was thinking, I was like, because I looked over, I was like, I have Death Dream, and then I think I have Death Bed.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, Dreams Door, Death Dream, and Death Bed.
I want Death Bed back so I can watch Death Bed again, because I'm on this inanimate killer object kick now. We'll talk about that though. So yeah, you get on that. Yeah,
I'll prioritize Death Bed. The bed that eats.
Oh boy!
I think it actually is available on streaming platforms, so I could probably even just sling this back to you.
I could do it that way too if I really needed to.
I think
so. Another thing I watched. This is not quite a film, nor is it a documentary. Are you familiar with Everything Is Terrible?
I mean, in real life, I'm familiar with that.
Yeah, but like the website. It's like what they do is this group of VHS fans, of media fans, they plumb the depths of VHS. They watch everything and then they record it all and they compile it and edit it into entertaining tidbits. They do like a website. I think it's like one of their sites is like Memory Hole and stuff like that. They've been doing this forever. Their repository of like shit is unending. But so they put together shows. They travel around. It's kind of like the Found Footage Festival.
Right.
They put together these compilations of footage, and they kind of like just to like blow your fucking mind with like craziness of like just like of things you're like. Yeah, like they don't use like high quality anything. They always want like it to look like shit and have that like 90s quality, being at your grandma's, but watching things that your grandma did not own, things that nobody probably bought, maybe at like weird old churches and stuff like that. They would sit in their library, some of the stuff. So I watched Everything Is Terrible presents The Great Satan. So this is this is like 72 minutes long, but it is the experience of watching it. On a visual level, reminds me of Sarah Connor getting blasted by atomic energy in Terminator 2 when she gets reduced to a skeleton holding onto the fence, because this thing just hits the ground running and you are just enamored with like footage of shit, of like telling the story of the devil and society itself, and it is just nonstop. Like it's like perfect for the attention deficit generation. Because you can't get bored. You're just like constantly just seeing footage, and it uses everything from like children's Christian videos to gay pornography. It goes all through everything, back and forth. Like, no one scene lingers probably longer than 10 seconds. The vast majority of them are like a second. They're like sound clips, like just images that just blast by your eyes, and you're just like, oh, I've seen that movie. Like, that's all I sometimes would think. And then you're like watching it and just like kind of being brought along for the ride. Okay. It's like a film collage, but really well done. This thing was so much fun. I was like, after watching, I'm like, God damn, that was like 72 minutes. Like that, I can't believe it. Like, that was one of the easiest things I watched. Like, I didn't want to go grab my phone. I didn't want to go, check my emails. It's just like, because you can't, because if you do, you miss something, and you actually feel like you've missed something. So that's a real winner for me this month.
In the cast, I'm seeing Glenn Danzig, Oprah Winfrey,
yes,
Alejandro Jodorowsky,
Gene Simmons, Chuck E. Cheese,
David Cronenberg,
Phil
James
Donahue.
Woods, your buddy.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty cool. Where did you watch this?
DVD. Ordered it from Everything Is Terrible. So I do have this DVD.
Well, I don't want to take any more this year, but maybe next year. It sounds good.
It's good. Cool. I mean, this, I think even old Andy would be into this, because it's like, it's so easy to watch.
Pretty tough though to pick movies for, dude.
Well, this is like, this isn't a movie. This is an experience.
Yeah. Okay, I'll try to sell it like that. I'll tell her you said that.
Yeah, just say it's a Jarrett pick for her.
Yeah, she knows what Jarrett picks are like.
Yeah, she knows.
I'll be like, this is Jarrett pick. She's like, oh, is there weird sex stuff in it? And I'll be like, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, not per se. There is some lovemaking montages.
Is that a rough
but then there's also
take?
There's also decapitation montages and hands being stabbed montages. There's montages for everything. There's children being born. There's monster demons being born montages, because there's enough footage that exists of like women giving birth to giant monster things.
Yeah,
there just is exactly.
Yeah.
So after that, I watched a Australian movie. Ajay,
what now?
An Australian film.
Oh, is Oliver Granger there? I know that's not where he lives, but was he there?
Nope, he wasn't there.
Okay.
I looked for him and everything, but he's not there.
Bad.
This is another S. Craig Zoller pick. I had never heard of this movie. It's called Primal from 2010.
Oh, yeah.
Directed by, I think, a one-and-done boy, Josh Reed. So this movie, I love synopsises. Evil lies within. Anja and 5 friends join anthropology student Dace on a journey to study a remote ancient rock painting. Their excitement vanishes when Mel becomes delirious after skinny dipping in the waterhole. Feverish, bleeding, confused, she physically and mentally regresses to a vicious predatory state. Mel has gone primal. Mel's lover and friends realize they are the prey as she savagely hunts them down. Before they can escape, another one of them starts to regress, posing a hideous choice: kill their friends or be killed by them. Their only hope of survival is through a cave, where Anja learns too late the meaning of the ancient rock art they came to study.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, actually, that is what happens in this movie. And this movie is the shits.
Oh, you were making it sound like it was going to be good.
But it's not. It's bad. You ever seen? You remember The Ruins?
Oh yeah. That book that everyone allegedly thinks is amazing.
Allegedly, and then they made that movie, because it's like it's one of those things where it's like that. What's his name? Scott something.
Bakula?
Yeah, Scott Bakula from.
It's like Scott S or something.
Yeah, Scott Smith maybe.
Yeah.
So he wrote a Simple Plan, and then that turned into an awesome movie. And then he wrote this like plant horde killer vines in the southern part of the world movie. And I was thinking about that movie frequently while watching this, because you're like, oh, it's like another one of those movies about like essentially my review of this mentions underwear models, because everyone in this is like attractive young fit specimens who like us. Who they're like playing scientists. They're going to go look at some rocks, and then hijinks ensue. But like, there's no likable characters in this at all, and it's just like every 2000s generic horror movie you can imagine. It doesn't differentiate itself too much until the end, where they kind of get into like what's in the cave, and you go, ugh. Oh, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, so this movie sucked, and there's a reason why no one talks about it. And it's like, I don't know what S. Craig Zoller was all about. Unless he's into, like, I don't know, bad character decisions. Oh, just,
Well, I mean, he kind of is.
like Dragged Across Concrete.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, that movie was pants. I watched a documentary. I watched To Hell and Back, the Kane Hodder story.
Oh shit! Is that dude who was Freddy Krueger?
The other one. He was
Michael Myers?
He was Jason's. He was Jason's.
He wasn't the alien from Aliens 2, Return of Bill Pullman?
Nope.
Okay. Well, tell me about it then.
Okay, so Hell and Back. It's a documentary about Kane Hodder.
Okay.
Yep.
And what's he doing?
He acts. He does the stunt works early on, and then he becomes a Jason, and then he's kind of like moved on into being like one of director Adam Green's boys, like playing Hatchet.
Yeah.
So this documentary, it is a first film being made by the guy who made this thing. It's like, I was kind of okay with it. It's like, I mean, it's just an information dump. It's not like a very well made documentary. It's just talking heads and some footage. And like, the first half of this, I was like, kind of like, yeah, like it's one of those things that's incredible where if you like isolate moments from a Friday the 13th movie, they look like artwork. Like, they're like so cool. The kills, you isolate, you pick up on those things. You're like, man, this is like real deal movie making, not like Friday the 13th movies at all. Because like the ones he comes into the franchise when it sucks. Like he's in the last four. Like he's like in Jason Takes Manhattan and that stuff. Like he's not part of the our big 3, 2, 3, 4. He's in that latter half. He's in Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, our namesake here. And then, but that's it. Like, there seems to be barely any Kane, or very, very barely any Jason stuff. And then it's just like Adam Green and talking, and like it's trying to spend all this time convincing you that Hatchet's worth your time.
Oh, that sounds super lame, dude.
And yeah, it stinks because you haven't seen Hatchet, right?
No.
Hatchet sucks. Like it's kind of like Primal, where it's just like it's very 2000s in every bad way for a horror movie, but then it's got these incredibly grisly, violent deaths that are like awesome. Like some of them are like, holy shit, but that's it. And then they're trying to talk about these, like, we're trying to give the Victor Crowley character some depth, and he's got a whole backstory figured out. You're just like, no,
I don't need any of that shit though.
That shit sucks. Like, no one, like the movie that you have. It's like, isn't it cool how Kane Hodder actually plays Victor Crowley's father in the flashback? And you're like, that's like the most obvious thing in the world. Why? That's like, of course you did that, because it's like the only logical thing you would do. It's not like, that's really cool, I'm gonna like give you kudos to making a decision. And like, there's this whole like backstory that's interesting with Kane Hodder. Like, for instance, like I guess like the big reveal in it is that when he was like 22, a young stuntman, he was trying to like, I guess he was doing like a publicity story of some journalist, and he was going to do a full body burn, and he does one, and it goes badly because it doesn't work. He was by like a big body of water. The wind was bad that day, and the fire just went out immediately. It was very embarrassing. He was like, fuck, I didn't do a very good job of it. Let's do it again. Let's do it in the desert. Oh, hey, I'm out of rubber cement. Hey, can you bring some from your office? Because I have no money. And she's like, sure. She brings it along, but he doesn't do his research and like look up and go, oh, wait, this rubber cement's different than the stuff you would actually use for doing a full body burn. And then he does a full body burn, RJ, for this photographer out in the desert, and it goes horribly wrong, and he suffers horrific burns all over his body. He spends like half a year in intensive wards, burn ward. Like, eventually gets sent to a actual like facility for burns, but like he almost died from infections 4 months afterwards until they finally sent him to get proper care. And they spend way too much time like showing him walking around and looking at the hospital. Like, it's ridiculous. And you're like, are they just padding this out at this point? Like, I get this was like probably a big deal for him, but like there's no big moment to it. You're just like, yeah, that sucks. And he's like, he's still got him, like his whole body. You never really see it. Like his arms are like that, and you can see it in his neck. But I always think DDP kind of has that thing too. So I don't know if he's been burned. But, like then you see like a moment of his like him without his shirt on, and you're like, holy shit, he's been torched.
That's what they say about me.
But the insane thing is Kane Hodder still does full body burns in his stunt life.
What's he got left to lose?
Exactly. He's lived through it all. But,
so are you saying this isn't a 4.5-star affair?
no, this is not great. Unless you are super into the idea of Kane Hodder and like getting interviews from Twisted and Adam Green and other people who are going to like talk about the genius of Kane Hodder, take a pass. But
I can just talk to you about that.
Exactly. And I already told you about this. He's like, are you into Kane Hodder, RJ? No. Is this going to get you into Kane Hodder? No.
Is this the guy who played the Shape in the 2018 remake of Halloween?
No. There is a bit where he talks about being really crushed by the fact that he was not cast to play Jason in Freddy vs. Jason. It went to a guy who was his stunt double in Jason Takes Manhattan.
Well, who cares though?
Well, he was very sad, and everyone talks about how big a deal it was. And then they have some footage from like some other Adam Green garbage project with like Robert Englund.
That sounds horrible.
It's not great stuff.
Like the promotional stuff, that sounds bad.
Well, but it's not even like it is part of the documentary, like huge swaths of it. Because what else are you going to talk about with him? Apparently, speaking of Robert Englund.
Yes.
I later that same day I watched this. I watched the first part of this little franchise called 976 Evil.
That sounds cool.
Robert Englund directs this. It's kind of what you would call. It's kind of like a demon type deal, like demons. Bava.
I know some demons. I know demons.
Umberto. Yeah. So 967 Evil. Yeah. It's kind of a trudge. It's about there's a real nerd kid who's got a cool greaser cousin that lives with him. He's being raised by like kind of like Carrie's mom, where she's like a super religious fanatic. And this kid though, he's like such a dweeb that you're like, this guy needs to like try a little bit more. Someone needs to straighten this kid out because he is just kind of unbearable and a total creep. Watching his cousin making it with girls through windows. He has set up a pneumatic tube system so he can send messages saying she's got a nice ass. And then when him and his girlfriend leave, he goes over to his cousin's place and starts snatching up some panties left behind. And you're like, I don't really have a lot of sympathy going for this dude, this creep. But then he makes these phone calls, you see, to this 976 Evil number. It's like kind of like a Homer Simpson's phone scam back in the day, where like you'd call him and he'd give you advice. Do you remember that episode? It's latter day crappy.
Where
Simpsons.
They call Homer for advice?
Homer sets up like a 1-800 numbers thing. He has a gimmick where you call him and he gives you bad advice, but he thinks it's good and he's supposed to change who you are. He sets himself as a phone guru. This is kind of like more of like a horoscope line, but then it turns out that you're talking to the devil or something on the other end. So the kid starts turning into evil speak. Remember evil speak?
I remember evil speak.
Evil speak's pretty cool. At least like that. The climax of the movie's awesome. This movie has none of the charm of Clint Howard. It's got this It's got this other spaz kid. And 976 Evil, it's just sort of there. It marches to its conclusion. He turns into a demon kid. He starts doing some demony things. The house starts going crazy. It's got some world-class, horrendous compositing where it's like the guy and the girl trying to escape from the building as it's just turning into a hell, like literally a hell hole, and people are falling into it, and they're climbing across this, and it's like, this is really cheap. And then it turns into a happy ending when the kid just gets sent to hell, because that's okay. There's no redemption. This movie stunk. And then we watched 976 Evil 2. Because, I was also putting friend Corey and Bryant through this.
Why not?
I like to keep Saturday horror movies in October light, you know? Watch the cheeseball movies. I'm going to save the good stuff for myself. I'm going to get these crowd pleasers out of the way. 976 Evil 2, it's like I guess it's a sequel. The greaser kid, now he's kind of living like James in Twin Peaks. He's on the road. He's looking a little bit more disheveled. He rides into town. There is a serial killer dean of a university killing girls.
That sounds cool.
But he's doing it through astral projection. So it's like, how is he doing it? How is he getting away with it? So you know how he's doing it because the movie just tells you flat out that he's a bad guy. He actually kind of reminds me of the main character of A Blood Feast, like that or Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. And yeah, it's just another movie. It's just and then they never made a 3, so you know it's not that great.
Or is it really great? Have you ever considered that?
I had not.
So that's why they pay me the big bucks, Jarrett. You're talking about all these things about how it's not good, and it's like, what if it was?
You asked the big questions.
I do ask the big questions. That's what I'm here for, man.
976 Evil 2, maybe a masterpiece.
Who's to say? I don't know.
What do you got to say?
You want to hear about a movie that is definitely not a masterpiece?
Yes.
You want to hear about In the Shit Ass? By Vincenzo Natali.
Oh boy, Canadian.
Is he?
He is.
So, from the director of Cube and Splice.
Yep.
So this is a Stephen King picture, fresh on Netflix a week ago, allegedly. This is a movie that's not very good, my man, and a lot of people are giving it generous ratings. Yeah, like there's a lot of 3s, 3.5s, and I think that's pretty generous. So I know you're done with Stephen King. I'm not. I'll forever try. So this is this In the Tall Grass, or the Shit Ass, as I like to call it. It was a short story written by Joe and Steve. So Joe Hill had a new collection of short stories come out the 3 or 4 days before this movie came on Netflix, because that's how
Synergy.
Yeah, synergy. And because Joe Hill only writes short stories now for some reason, like I know he did that before, and Stephen King does that too, but whatever. So it's written by both of them, which it's like there's that book Sleeping Beauties, that's Stephen King and Joe King, or not Joe, Owen King, the other brother, the forgotten son. I haven't read that yet, but I've always wondered, I'm like, what is it going to be like when 2 people write a book? Like, what's the deal with this? So there's parts of this story that I think are obviously Joe Hill, and then there's parts that are obviously Stephen King. The short story itself is only like 30 pages. I read it. It's about some tall grass. These people, so where the short story ends is about 20 minutes into the movie, and it ends. And then the movie decides, it's like, you know what? That's not enough. Let's flip this son of a bitch around and keep going. So the short story ends. It's kind of like, it doesn't wear out its welcome, but at the same time, whatever. It's like this couple, or they're not even couple, they're brother and sister, and she's pregnant. On the side of the road, they stop and they hear a kid screaming in the grass. So they go into the grass, and then it's this like metaphysical interdimensional grass that you can't leave once you enter it. It's very Twilight Zone-y, Jarrett. Very Twilight Zone-y. So you can't leave once you enter it, and they get lost in it, and then they encounter some other people, and they're stuck in there. But then one of the guys is evil because there's a giant rock in the middle of the grass that once you touch the rock, you become possessed by the grass. You with me so far?
Yep.
So the story, like, it has some interesting things, like nothing that hasn't been done yet either, where the people will be like, where are you? And it's like, I'm right beside you. Look. And then like they'll look over the grass and they'll be like 2 feet away, and then they'll move and look over, but then they're like on the other side, like 20 feet away. And it's like, how did that happen? So there's like stuff like that. And then it kind of just ends with like the characters just die in the grass. And it's like, okay.
So it goes.
Sure. So in this movie, Jarrett, you get all of the same stuff for about 20 minutes. And I thought that they would have, like, it's a fine line, I guess, because if there was more, people would probably been like, oh, they did it too much. But I think there was a missed opportunity to play around with sound design, because they did it really briefly, whereas like out of one side of the screen, like one speaker, and then out of the other, because it's showing that they're moving around, and they show that, but they only show it like really briefly. And I don't think they don't do it enough, because I think that was more about the more interesting part of the story. So it goes up, and then one of the characters dies. And then you're introduced to a new character who's looking for these people who get lost in the grass. He finds the grass. He walks into it. And then you start a new cycle, Jarrett. And this movie plays around with like cyclical loops that never end, even though there's endings to them. And this movie borrows a lot of stuff. You ever seen the movie Triangle, Jarrett?
I have.
So this movie borrows some stuff from there. Like, do you remember in Triangle when you get to that cool point and you see all those dead bodies?
Yep.
Just piling up? They steal that for this, but it doesn't have the same weight. The biggest problem with me for this movie is that it is completely meaningless in the sense that nothing matters at all. Because you see characters die, and then it starts over. It cycles back. And then it's just like, it's them again walking through the grass. And you're like, okay. And then they die again. And then it starts over. And not in the way where like, remember last week we were talking, or not us, but friend of the show, Sam Sanchez was talking about As Above, So Below. And I thought that does the cyclical nature of those things like really well, where it's like you're kind of trapped in this thing. This thing, it doesn't matter for these people because they're not dying and then coming back and then dying again. It's just like separate entities all the time. And it shows that because the bodies pile up. It's like, oh, so it's a different people or something. I don't know. Like a lot of this movie, I just thought was nonsensical. I was like, what are they doing? Like, what is the point of this? Because there's all these people walking around. They're dying. Patrick Wilson shows up with a mustache. He's like, I touched the rock. Now you're going to touch the rock. And he's like, I don't know. He has one good scene where he like squishes a head. There's one good scene like that, but then it kind of like dips out and it doesn't even make sense anymore. They like go to a bowling alley for a minute. They're like, this bowling alley is in the tall grass. And you're like, what? Like, what is happening here with this? And then there's like really silly stuff. Like the pregnant woman gets fed like her fetus and you're like, okay. But then it starts over again. So it doesn't matter. And there's, I don't know, dude. Like, I just thought so much of this stuff cuts back onto itself that I lost interest in it so fast. I was like, what is going on? Like, why are they over complicating these things? Andrea watched about half an hour of this and she's like, this movie fucking sucks. I was like, I agree with you. It does. Then you get a CGI fetus being overtaken by like grass. It's got like, it's plant horror. And then you have like these grass people that are like a cult and their heads are grass and they're moving around.
That's kind of neat.
And it was okay, but how do you feel about CGI?
Real bad.
How do you feel
real bad about it?
How do you feel about entire movies filmed on green screen?
Even worse.
And I know what people will say is like, well, they used real tall grass. It's like, I don't care, because there's entire scenes like whenever they're near that huge big rock, it is just a full green screen. Like, and it doesn't look good. The CGI is bad. The
bad lighting.
Bad lighting.
I've seen those film stills that when I saw, I was like, that was the beginning of the end with me and Stephen King adaptations.
Yeah, this is not a good show, Jarrett.
Yeah.
Not a good show. So like you said, I think people are being highly generous of this thing.
Yeah.
Highly generous. So do you want to hear about some other movies or?
Sure.
Okay, do you want to hear about shorts that I watched or not?
If there's anything worth talking about, I mean,
The Substitute was okay.
Yeah, I saw that's like 15 minutes or something long on the Shudder.
On the Shudder, yeah, it's about a lady who takes a substitute teacher job at a private school, and it's unusual, Jarrett. Unusual. No, that one's not bad. And then I watched El Gigante, which is just Texas Chainsaw. Gigante. It's just Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but with Mexican luchadors instead. Not very good. Not very good.
Sadly, it seems like luchador horror never works out the way that it should. Because apparently even the new Hellboy movie, it opens up with that. It opens with luchador horror stuff, and then but it still sucks. And you're like, how?
Yeah.
How do you fuck this up?
I don't know. That movie was supposed to come to Prime this week, but it didn't. So.
Hellboy?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It was announced that it was there, but then it never showed up. So I don't know what that's about. We'll get it eventually. So yeah, that thing was okay. Do you want to hear about The Last Slumber Party? Directed by
Sure.
lead singer of Aerosmith, Steven Tyler. So
I've seen this movie, I believe.
I allegedly, yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
even realize you had seen it. So I watched this movie because I watched the Slumber Party movies, Jared. This one's really,
Yeah.
it's kind of, it takes a lot of the same stuff. You have girls who are having a slumber party, and you have the guys who show up to like get with them and all that, and like kind of like play jokes on them. But it's really weird the way they present some of this stuff, because there's the red herring character who's like this he's like the really smart kid in the class, and the bullies, like the popular kids, they always call him Science. Just Science. They're like, hey, Science,
He's
get
science.
over here.
I guess it's better than Poindexter.
Poindexter, yeah, just hey, Science, get over you. So they're like bugging this guy, and then the killer on the loose for this one is a guy who dresses up in scrubs and carries around like a scalpel. So it's supposed to be like a doctor.
Yep.
And the girl's house that they're staying at, that guy is an actual doctor, I guess. This movie is like kind of. It's kind of fun for a few different things, but it just never is really anything. So there's fun stuff, like whenever something happens, characters just throw, like, say a guy will open a beer and it'll spill, and he'll be like, oh, this is no good, and he'll throw it out the window of like a 2-story house, and then the killer will come in and he'll kill a guy, and he's like, oh, I got to get rid of his body. So he'll pick it up and throw it out the window of like the 2-story house. So the entire movie is based on like windows. It's either people throwing shit out the window or people climbing in through the window, which I guess makes sense. But it's like, I don't know. Like, I thought the emphasis on it was really weird. And then there's also like they always cut to the guy in the scrubs, and it just zooms in on his like super wide eyes to make him look crazy, and it lingers for so long. You're like, why are they showing this for so long? It also has like a bit at the end where it's like, was it all a dream? But then they like cut away from that. And I'm gonna spoil this because it's a movie from 1987 that's not good.
And no one's gonna watch this either.
Nobody cares. Yeah. So like the last girl, she like sees her dad in the pool, and she like goes and she's like, oh no, dad's in the pool. And she like moves the body around, and then it's like a wide shot of her in the pool, like waist deep. And then like in the pool swims up the doctor and like cuts her throat and then swims back away. And I was watching that. I was like, what? Like, I thought it was pretty funny, but I was just like, what is going on here?
I'm sure that was their intent.
Yeah, like, I don't know. It's not good, my man. Not good. So did you watch any movies or no? Okay.
Yeah, RJ.
You can talk about some if you want.
So I attempted to watch this movie called Hellmaster.
That sounds cool.
It does sound cool, right? Vinegar Syndrome put this out recently. I had a copy of this still that I got, officially, and I watched that because I was leery. Sometimes you don't want to drop $34 blind, and I'm glad I did not buy this without knowing, and because this is just like a nonsensical Prince of Darkness type deal.
Oh, that's too bad.
John Saxton plays. There's actually kind of a theme here between this and 976 Evil 2, which is like, I guess, demonic academics killing. This is about like John Saxton's like a what do you
sex
call
predator?
No, I'm sure he does that too as a side gimmick. But no, he's like been like tossed out of academia for his dangerous ideas, and he's come back to get revenge on the school with his horde of like demonic undead. And it sounds like, oh, that could work, but no, it never really explains what it is. You're just kind of going along with it. You're like, wait, what happened? And you're like, everyone's just treating this like it's the most normal thing in the world. He was doing experiments in the basement of the school, and there was like a newspaper, or a journalist went in there with a camcorder and shot this footage of all these like kind of like Dawn of the Dead-ish kind of just people writhing around on the ground because they're like possessed or they're soulless. I can't tell exactly what's happening, but it's all poor people who've been taken advantage of by these radical experiments. And then like he's come back to get revenge with his new horde. And so it plays like Prince of Darkness and demons, but it never makes any sense. Like it never draws you in. It's just like, oh, then this happens. And then this happens. And it's not like a super cheaply made movie, but boy, I don't know what my expectations for this were. I mean, it's called Hellmaster. That's pretty rad. But
It's super rad,
there's
man.
There's nothing rad about this movie. It's just incomprehensible bullshit. My Letterboxd review, for those who are not in the know, was simply that clip of Krusty the Clown going, "What the hell was that?"
Is that soon to, I can only imagine, be your number one review on Letterboxd?
It's done pretty well. Beating a lot of things this year, I think. Even my Us review.
Oh, I don't know if I know your Us review. I probably do.
M. Night is back, baby.
Oh, that one's pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a good movie people still talk about, right?
Nope. So I watched The Child. This is one of those blind buys. It came in a box set of American independent horror movies that are kind of neglected, and they're repackaging them in this Stephen Thrower curated thing. He's a writer. I knew nothing about The Child. Popped it in. The first, hour and 15 minutes, it's just like this kind of like sloggy American regional horror movie with like lots of atmosphere, and I love that stuff. So I'm okay with this. Not a masterpiece, but I'm okay with what this Child is throwing down. And then it gets to the ghouls, RJ. Daylight.
What kind of ghouls?
Daylight ghouls. They don't care. They don't care if it's day or night. The ghouls just start coming, and they're like in like white face. They're weird looking ghouls, and they just keep coming, and then it just turns into like Night of the Living Dead-ish kind of stuff, CG things where people are hiding out in a barn, having problems opening doors all of a sudden, and then hands are coming out of the wood planks. It's awesome. I was totally into this conclusion of this movie. I probably overrated this thing too. Sometimes when you spend money on things, you're more likely to like something more because of that. But I found it very effective. It's got like it's always shot in those types of houses that have those ridiculously high ceilings, and I think that was an era thing, because now it's all about like saving space, so you want lower ceilings because you want to save on your heating bill, so you're not just heating up the ceiling, and so I always find it amazing when you watch these movies from a different era. They're like shot in like farmhouses, and they're just immense, like massive rooms everywhere. And you're like, well, that's good for filming a movie, and because now you can set up all your equipment to move around your actors. It's very convenient. But I like this Child. It's like a possessed.
Yeah, sorry, can you say again?
The Child. I like Child.
There you go. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like the plot is like, I don't know. This girl comes in to like babysit or something, and then there's out on a farm, and there's like a girl who's like making deals with ghouls in the cemetery, like feeding them animals, like cats. I believe a cat is handed off to one of these ghoul hands that comes around the tombstone and just takes the kitten. It's good times. Nothing happens to the kitten, RJ. It's just
I wasn't gonna say anything.
She presents the kitten, and then the ghoul hand comes out and takes the kitten, and you're like, oh shit, that thing's gonna eat that, I guess.
The ghoul hand.
Ghoul hand. So yeah, that was good times.
Nice.
It's ghouls. And then I watched The Prey.
Which is that the alien, the Prey, or is it a different Prey?
This is a different. It's not Prey from Vinegar Syndrome.
From someone?
From Norman Warren.
Okay.
This is The Prey.
How's it different?
A slasher film of sorts.
Yeah.
This is another movie that's got kind of like a batshit crazy label. It's out there. People seem to be into it, kind of, but they're not, because this movie's very bad. But it's kind of amazingly bad. I've like not seen. This is like Room kind of territory of incompetence, like The Room, not Room, The Room, where you're like, what is going on? This is not how you edit a movie. Like, you're showing every single element of what a person is doing in a space, and you're like, no, you cut around that. You don't need to show it. And it's like the two people split up, and now we have to show what they're both doing in their respective places. But you're like, well, you can't show that. Like, it breaks the time barrier, because you can't be showing the person in the background doing something that you've already shown for like 30 seconds, and then show someone else what they were doing 30 seconds prior with no explanation. It's like, you can't do that. You don't need to, because people are smart. They have like the ability to like parse out temporal relations really quickly. So it's kind of hilarious how badly edited this is. And then like, so not only is this movie peppered with like all your like idiot campers and people out in the woods who are going to get picked off one by one by a giant man monster. And but it's like you're spending all this time like introducing people, and it's just the camera's holding on to them while they're conversing, and they talk and they finish their sentence, and each time those scenes just go a little too long. Each scene, just each cut, just a little too long, leaves a little bit too much there. And then I watched the American cut of this, and there's an international cut that's 20 minutes longer somehow. And then there's a fan cut that's even longer. And you go, why? Why would you want this to be even longer?
Why not?
It's baffling to me. This movie has just like scenes where like when someone's being killed, the camera just kind of lingers on them and there's no sound. It's just them making struggling sounds as they're strangled very boringly. People
How boring.
Oh, we were just like, oh, that's happening. But there's no drama. You're just like, yep, that actor is being fake strangled right now in their bikini. Gotcha. Yeah.
Was it a good bikini at least?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
It's an 8. And then it has a pretty cool ending, gotta say. The ending is like kind of ridiculously like, oh man. But boy, the journey to get there. My goodness. This movie's like only an hour and 20 minutes, but time itself, like it just slows to a like it's just a snail's pace, and then the movie just washes over you with all these like shots of insects and like bushes. And there's one scene in particular where you see an owl hooting and then it flies off, but then the camera holds on this branch as it kind of bounces back and forth from the owl launching off of it. And that wasn't enough for the filmmaker. No, let's loop it back and forth. So it goes back and forth. You can see that it's like being reversed and then put back and forward because they wanted to get a little bit more of it. So it's completely intentional. They think this is good shit. This is good shit. This is what people want. They want branches. I paid money for this, RJ. You
paid money for all of these, though.
Not all of them. This is in my collection. I have this. Okay. This is on me. This is on me.
Yeah.
And it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
Is it though?
It's fine. It's fine, RJ. I don't regret anything.
Oh, okay. You don't regret anything in this life, right?
I watched a short film called Cerulia. AKA, hey, Guillermo, give me a job. This is all this felt like. So this is made by this woman named Sophia something or other. She apparently did some intertitle work on that all-female horror anthology XX that I think everyone pretty well says is bad. But so she did these inner things. And I remember like she was interviewed on some podcast, wherever. And I saw this pop up on a list of Mexican horror things I was looking at. I went, oh, cool. I could watch that. It's on Vimeo. So I did. And it's a stop motion thing. It looks good. On a production level, it works. But my God, just like people, you're going to put all this effort into your work. Like storyboard it, tighten it up, make your impression, make it work, make something like that people want to invest 13 minutes in. It can't just be like, yeah, it looks great. It's like, yeah, it does look very good. I mean, that's all maybe it takes. And when Guillermo del Toro watches it and goes, I like what I see, you should direct a feature film. Because that's what he does. He gives you work, and then you make a bad movie, and then you never work again. That's the theme of...
what about your boy, Andy Muschietti?
Well, it worked out well for him, and then he made one of the worst films I've ever seen in theater. So, yippee!
Terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, that was completely skippable, but it's stop motion, which is neat, but it's not. You need more than that. Before I hand it back to you, RJ, I got one movie I want to talk about, maybe a little bit of length. Are you familiar with Robert Zombie?
Oh, I'm aware of Bob Zombantino.
Bobby Zombie.
Yeah, I've participated in a Bob Zombie haunted house, which has been talked about at length on this podcast, I believe.
Yeah, on the Ghoul Schooling. So he has a new movie that just came out yesterday. Three from Hell? Yeah. The completing the trilogy of the House of 1,000 Corpses and Devil's Rejects movies.
Correct.
I haven't seen that yet. But I hadn't seen his previous film, his Kickstarter film, 31.
Is this the one that he brought up as, wasn't this a joke challenge where he's like, I'm not even kidding. Wasn't someone just like
31 days?
It was like that, and someone was like, "Give me an idea," and someone was like, "Why don't you make a movie about murder clowns?" He's like, "Fuck, I'll do it, sure."
And he sure did, RJ. This is his murder clowns film.
Great.
Fuck me. This is like, it's a parody of his own movies. Like that's the only way.
Intentionally?
I don't know. I don't think he has that type of self-awareness. He actually strikes me as a very like self-serious man. The kind of guy who like calls the cops about kids skateboarding behind his place. I don't know. It's tough. It's tough with this guy, this Rob Zombie. This movie, he again, it's a Kickstarter film, so you're gonna get what you sign up for. His wife, Sherry Moon Zombie, she's in it. She's horrible. This is like a return to her. Like, it's like she's regressed as an actor.
Right.
So she's one of the main characters. It's about 5, 6, 7 carnies. They're all in a van and they're driving to the next show, you know, going to put on a good show. Everybody talks like cockle-fuckle-doo and like this like ridiculous Rob Zombie dialogue and dialect where everyone talks about balls and oh man, don't sweat up my balls, and it's like, oh, suck your dick. It's like that's what they all talk like, Rob Zombie dialogue. So 31, what happens is they wind up getting waylaid by murder clowns who just like who kill 2 of them, and like they black bag them and drag them off to this like undisclosed location in this massive complex warehouse where they're forced to survive a Running Man style gauntlet of like murder clowns that all have names like Death Head, Sex Head, Love Head. All these great ideas.
To what end?
But they're lorded over by Malcolm McDowell and like these other like fine rich people who are all wearing like aristocratic like powdered wigs in this like opulent room that they're somehow watching the events even though there's no TV or any way of them to know what's going on, and they're betting on the results because that's what rich people do, man. They don't care about us.
Right.
And so like you're watching these fucking people who are like not particularly likable with side, because it's a period piece, 1976.
Of course.
And it takes place on Halloween.
Of course.
They have 24 hours to survive, and if they do, they can leave with their lives. And so they run the gauntlet, and people like there's a Nazi midget who talks in Spanish with daggers. Okay. He's the first kind of villain, and then they fight. Then they meet like the one guy who like I thought was honestly Bill Moseley because he sounds just like Bill Moseley's Rob Zombie characters, but it's not. It's like a guy who's just like him, and it's like these 2 brother clowns, and they're just like the most Rob Zombie like caricatures imaginable. It's like so fucking stupid. It's so bad, and they're just like they got chainsaws. And guess what, RJ? We get like almost a chainsaw duel. We get battling with chainsaws, and I go, oh, it's just like Mandy. But everyone loves Mandy, and no one likes 31. What's the deal with that? We have it's just like everything you need to know. And then like of course like because they're hillbillies. And then the next level where you get like the man and the woman, they're European. The one guy's really, really tall, and then you get the short woman who's like Harley Quinn. And they're going to fight them, and they're talking in German because German and like foreign languages are scary.
Aren't they?
So slowly the numbers are dwindling and they're getting picked off, but they're doing okay. They're doing better than they should be. So they call in the big gun. I think he's named like Death Head, who I believe I can't remember the name of the actor, but he is in the new one. He's kind of like replaced Sid Haig. He's like
that Richard Brake guy.
Yeah, I think so. So he's like bringing like he's the new guy in the Rob Zombie verse. And everyone's like, yeah, he's pretty cool. I mean, these people are also probably like juggalos. I think
incels.
I think I saw someone refer to like movies for autistic juggalos.
Wow, is that like, one of your lists?
No, that's not one of my lists. That was a reference to 3 from Hell, which it seems like is once again like a Rob Zombie movie, divisive. So this movie, and then suddenly it's like him, and he's like the real badass murder clown, and then you get speeches about clowns.
Clowns weren't always scary.
So I watched about an hour of this on a desktop on my lunch break, and I was like, this sucks. Like I am so annoyed by this. And then I watched the last half hour at home on my like 55-inch TV, and I liked it a lot more that way. So I don't know. but the end of this movie sucks. Like, I just was like, fuck off. You are such a lazy hack. Like, God damn you, zombie. Like, this is like, it's so lazy. It doesn't even make sense. It makes you ask questions. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It's just stupid. Like, it's a cop-out. It's such bullshit. It's like, because they don't really like.
Tell me what happens. I don't care.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's like, so what happens is, Sherry Moon survives. And it's like, well, no one's ever survived. And they're like, oh, well, we'll figure it out. Like, because it's like, well, yeah, now you have this woman who like knows about your murders warehouse in the middle of the desert, and she's escaped. And then that's like, but now you have like this like, oh yeah, this movie's pumped full of another zombie thing, which is like 70s rock music, which is cool. I like it sounds cool. I get why he's into it, but it's like eye rolling, and he does like the same like kind of weird like freeze frame, and then he rolls the film up to like a Polaroid of them in a happier point in their life, and then it rolls over to them dead in a freeze frame, and then it rolls back to the action. It's like he's been doing this shit forever. It's the same crap. So the movie ends with her walking down the desert really slowly with like death head walking behind her. And he's like, oh God, I gotta let her live. But then he comes back to finish the job, and then you don't even get to see that. You're just like, oh, I guess the contingency plan was just to fucking kill her. Because it's like, because we don't care. We don't give a shit. Because we're fucked in the head, man.
Because they're nihilists?
Murder clowns, nihilists. So yeah, 31. Like, oh, so frustrating.
But at least, I'm not going to watch this movie.
I know, but at least I had a reaction to it. Like, some of the movies
true.
I've watched, it's like Hellmaster. I was like, what am I watching? 31. I know exactly what I'm watching.
And you loved every minute of it, eh?
Yeah, no, it's I mean, I think he really topped out with Devil's Rejects. That's probably
Hey, is that movie good?
Devil's Rejects? Oh, you'll hate it too, I'm sure. But it's funny. It's like it's stupid, but it has like Sid Haig is awesome. Like he's got some good lines. Like I imagine you would probably get the most enjoyment out of Devil's Rejects. Because House of a Thousand Corpses sucks. I think that movie's absolutely crappy, and that's probably but the thing is, I feel like 31 has way too much House of a Thousand Corpses moments in it. Like it feels that same way, but not quite. Devil's Rejects is actually, I think, like it's probably his best movie. He just needs a better screenwriter because he stinks. Halloween I've talked about. I am like one of the few people in the world that actually thinks Halloween's pretty good, other than like when it turns into a slasher. And Halloween 2 is trash. It's other than actually the first 20 minutes of Halloween 2 are awesome. They're so awesome, and then it turns until it turns to Man of Steel and Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Yeah, not great. That art house trash. Well, I've seen bits of House of a Thousand Corpses like years and years ago
when everyone was watching it.
Yeah, I've seen bits of it, but I never watched Devil's Rejects. And like, I have a friend in real life who wants to watch 3 from Hell in the next week or two with me, and I haven't seen the other 2. Do you think that matters?
You should definitely probably watch the first 2 before you watch 3 from Hell.
But Jarrett,
I got them. I know exactly. They're right there. I'm looking at them right now.
Okay, well we'll see how that you'll hear in the next school if it ever happens.
Here's a gripe. This movie came out. This 3 from Hell. There's a 4K version. It is nowhere in the city. It's not on Amazon. You can't get it.
Yeah.
It's fucking annoying because I'm like, I got
what
a 4K.
Do you do?
Well, I mean, I could buy the Blu-ray and settle for that. I mean, it won't probably make a difference. This movie probably would not. I don't know how good it would actually look in 4K, but it's just stupid because I'm like, well, I'd buy it if I could buy it, but it's not there. I'm being cheated here.
Well, I mean, maybe the world is doing you a favor.
Probably, because I think I'm pretty well. I'm like Stephen King. I think I'm good with the Bob Zombie.
You're good with old Bobbert Zombie.
Well,
that's fine.
Maybe this will be the last one. This will be the last ride. I would have watched his Blob movie, his Blob remake, if that ever happened.
That would have been cool. Do you think? I don't know if he's gonna.
What's this fucking Blob shit, man? It's fucking eating us alive, man. Fuck if I know, man. See,
you ever crack open a cold one, man? That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
so what have you watched,
Jarrett? You ever heard of Race with the Devil?
I have once.
Another one of those aforementioned must-see films.
Exploitationers. Yeah, so when you asked for this one, I had to retrieve it from my out pile.
Oh, because it was out the door?
Yeah. I watched this
I
once,
get it.
and because I had such high hopes for this movie.
It sounds awesome.
RVs, people on the run, like in the wide open, in the daylight, RJ, being chased down by
horror, hey?
being chased down by Satanists. It's like, that sounds really cool. But as I will talk about later, I think Satanist movies are actually not very good.
Okay, here's the thing. So I agree with you, and I'll talk about it. So last week when Justin Peterson asked what some of our favorite horror subgenres were, I think I'm going to say that other than haunted houses for you, I think Satanist movies are one of your other favorites.
It should be.
I don't know, because
about
it's all the
this
stuff
week, though.
Yeah, it's all the stuff that you really like. And one of the things that I just got a notice for, that my Blu-ray, that's right, I bought a movie, Jarrett, a Blu-ray, which I don't do very often. A Blu-ray is going to ship in about a week for that hot new Blu-ray edition of The Devil Rides Out, which is top quality.
That's different.
That's different. That's different. But I'm just saying, Satanists and cultists is something that you and
cults.
me both really like the idea of, but the execution doesn't always land.
It's wildly varying.
Yeah, and which is with Race of the Devil, which sounds amazing, and I can see why you would have been drawn to this. I mean, Warren Oates, Peter Fonda.
Yeah.
So this movie, for people not in the know, we have RV campers, Warren Oates, Peter Fonda, and their two wives. They go out to the country. They're gonna have the vacation of their lives, baby. They set up their RV. The two guys are outside having a cigar in their big fucking coats. They're coats that are so awesome. They're having a little bourbon or like a whiskey. And they see this big tree get set on fire, or this like big fire, like a couple hundred meters away. And they're like, oh, that's weird. Let's go see what's going on.
Let's check it out.
They get their binoculars out. Let's go check that out. And they are witness to a satanic sacrifice. There's naked people. A woman gets stabbed and killed. Yep. They're like, oh, shit. They're like, we better get the fuck out of here. Satan's. At the very minute, I think it's Peter Fonda, one of the wives, turns on the lights to the RV and is like, you guys out there still, get on up in here. It's like, come to bed. And all the Satanists are like, huh? So they see that the RV is there, and they're like, the guys are like, Warren Oates is like, holy fuck, we got to get out of here. So they hop in the RV, and you do get like a pretty good chase scene at first. They're driving around. They get stuck in some water. Satanists are just fucking popping out of everywhere, like clinging to the side of the RV, like the fucking gremlin from the bus episode of Treehouse of Horror.
Also,
I know that.
Also Twilight Zone.
I know it's Twilight Zone. I like the bus version better. So they're clinging to it, and then, but then the movie doesn't make good on the Race with the Devil, because I was like, oh, maybe there's gonna be a Hot Pursuit movie or something, but with horror Satanists in it. But then they go to this sleepy town, and it's just a bunch of like old sheriffs that are like, maybe you saw Satanists.
Did you say a bunch of old sheriffs?
Yes.
So it's like it's like everyone in town is like an old sheriff, and they're like, oh yeah, no, I don't know about that. And you're like, well, here's another one. Let's ask him. Wow, geez, that sounds pretty far fetched. What have you guys been smoking? And then you go to the next sheriff.
Is that not what plays out?
Where's that movie?
Well, we haven't made it yet.
Yeah.
So they go to this old town of sheriffs, these old sheriffs. And all of them are basically just like, well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. You know, maybe it's best to let things move on. And they're like, okay, that's weird.
Ship out, boys.
So they try to leave, and then things start happening to them where it's like, things aren't looking up for you. And then there's the rest of the movie. Like, it's kind of like you said, it sounds awesome. There are good parts, but a lot of it, too, is just, I don't know. It's kind of clunky. I don't like. There's a lot of animal stuff in this. Like, so there's some dog stuff which I never like. There's a snake in there, and I don't really care about snakes, but they're for real beating the shit out of that snake in this movie too. And you're just like, whoa, this thing's lasting a fucking eternity.
Oh.
So that goes on for a long time. And it's like I said, I don't really like snakes. If I saw a snake, I'd probably try to kick that son of a bitch too to get it away from me. Mm-hmm. But point is, there you go. The end of this movie has some awesome stunt work with the vehicles. I said that at the start of this podcast, but it's true here too. It's got some nice stunt work with like cars and fucking tractors ramming into this RV. But the biggest thing about this is it's just kind of disappointing because you get through it and then you're kind of like, oh, I guess that's it.
Yep.
And it's a bummer.
That movie's a kind of a bummer.
You know what movie is like similar but for different reasons is The Prowler.
Oh,
by Joseph Zito. Or do you have anything to say about Race with the Devil?
I got my thoughts on Race with the Devil.
Yeah.
It disappointed me. I'd probably rewatch it to see if I have a different thought, but it seems like it's a consistent response.
Yep. So after that, I watched this movie called The Prowler, Jared.
Yep.
From one of the director of one of my favorite Friday the 13th, the final chapter, part 4. Joe Zito. And the biggest thing that you Google this movie and what's going to pop up first thing, Tom Savini.
Tom Savini effects.
Holy
shit, that's about it.
So The Prowler is this movie where it starts off in like the 50s.
Yep.
And you have this guy in like old army or like, well, not yet. So you have this guy going around pitchforking people, killing people. And it's like not even really a big deal. He kills like one person and it's like, all right. And then it jumps to the 80s.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a weird, like, why did they even have that? So the Prowler is this dude, though, who wears old army fatigues.
Yeah, gas masky thing.
Gas mask. He looks pretty cool, to be honest.
Man, what a disappointment.
What?
The movie. This movie.
Yeah. So here's the thing about the Prowler. The Prowler has amazing effects. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Everything Tom Savini does in this movie is so cool. I love all of the death scenes. Like, obviously, up front, they look awesome. They all look great. But I actually just really like the execution of a lot of those scenes. That's not a pun intended. Yeah. But like the way that some of the kills are shown, like there's one where it's like a stab either through the top of the head or through the bottom of the head and you see it come out the other way. Yeah. But the guy, they just hold it there because the guy's still alive for a while, but he can't talk because he's got like this thing through him. And they just let it play out. And I actually thought that was like, I was like, they never like just linger on these shots. That's wicked. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was awesome. You get some head explosions. I liked the morbid, grotesque nature of like the shower deaths and how he just kills the people in the shower and then just leaves them in there. And then a character like sees them an hour later and is like, oh shit. And then the night goes on and it's the next fucking day and they come back and open up the shower and the bodies are still in there just getting like showered on. Because in my mind I was like, they don't show it enough because it's like it would have probably been really hard, but it's like, could you imagine how wrinkly and like warped out those fucking bodies would have been if they were just like showered on for 12 hours after they were all cut up and stuff? That's what I was thinking about. I don't know about you guys. But yeah, the Prowler is super mixed bag because at 89 minutes it feels too long.
Yeah, there's like the actual stalking slash, like the actual build up.
It's
so drawn out.
Yeah, it's drawn out. There's not enough payoff to it. Like the deaths are awesome, but like the actual stalk and slash, like you said, it'll be scenes of like just people walking around for like 10 minutes,
and you're like waiting, and you're waiting.
You're just waiting and waiting.
Is this going to be the time? No.
Yeah. So it's a real bummer because the effects are so good that it stinks that the rest of the movie doesn't make good on that. Yeah.
Totes.
The Prowler. What do you want to hear about some other movies or what do you want to do here?
I'll let me mention this one here.
Okay.
So blind buys. So I have there's the Redemption Films line. I'm sure you've noted the spines of those. They look really cool. I own every single one of them, all 57, I think. And in buying those, I took a shortcut. There's these films by this guy named Pete Walker, making these British horror films. I'd only ever seen one of them called Frightmare. And my watching of that several years ago was not a positive one. I was like, this is just fucking boring. But I see that like there's a few of these other movies that get brought up as like maybe good like slashers.
Sure.
Like The Confessional, I think, or House of Sin or something like that. So I was like, well, whatever. I'm a completionist. I'm going to buy all these things up. So I have two goddamn Pete Walker box sets with 8 of his films. And with the Flesh and Blood show, I'm 0 for 3 for his movies. They are like the worst kind of boring British filmmaking. Just, I don't even want to talk about it. I just like, I hope, because I've got 5 more of these I eventually will watch, I guess, and I hope they get better. I like House of Whipcord's got a pretty cool poster. Maybe that one will like, he's figured out how to like make an exciting movie instead of just like, oh, it's a bunch of actors who are in a theater and people are being killed, but they all think it's fake. I hate that idea so bad. It's so like boring. It's like every time I see that in a movie, it's always like, yeah, this sucks. Like, I don't care. Like, whatever. I know I'm watching a goddamn movie. It's not real. Like,
it's like, we know that. That's, just do it. Bring Tom Savini in to do something.
Quit doing stories about like backstage and murder. It's like, no, I don't want this in my life. So anyway, yeah, that stunk. But RJ,
yes,
I watched. Speaking of YouTube scores and digital scores, after watching Joker and kind of thinking about clowns, I was like, I wonder what kind of clown horror movies there are. And,
good.
You know, there's horror clowns, and I was looking them up. But there's this one that like I had not been familiar with, and they're called Camp Blood. And these are 1999, 2000, 2004, like shot on video, like clown slasher movies in the woods. And that is exactly what you get. Like,
is it good?
No, but very watchable. I got what I wanted out of them. They're all 3 of the ones I watched. They got worse as I was going on, from Camp Blood 2 to this movie called Within the Woods, which is considered Camp Blood 3, all directed by this guy named Brad Sykes, who is a name that I was like, that seems like a really familiar name. Like, I see that name all the time on Facebook. So this guy, he's just like on like Facebook horror DVD trading pages who people selling memorabilia. He's just a guy like us. He just he made
like us.
He makes movies. He makes these like no budget shot on video movies. He's still making stuff. He's a guy. He just makes stuff, making movies. Very basic. Nothing. No great shakes, but they're still kind of watchable to me. But like your mileage will vary. But like, so Camp Blood 1999 I found on YouTube. I watched it. It's just check this boxes. Camp Blood 2 is a direct sequel, which like pads out its time as something that we've been discussing lately, a la Truffaut, I'll say, with a lot of flashbacks of what happened in the previous movie that you probably just watched.
Gotcha.
And then Within the Woods, it's just kind of starts off, but it's like, because it's 2004, they're picking up on this idea, like it's like a hot shot producer who's going to make a reality TV show of people at Camp Blood, where all these murders happened, but now there's like a new clown in coveralls, killing people.
A new clown in coveralls.
They're all wearing clown masks. They're all wearing bad rubber clown masks and just killing people. Yep. And there's 8 of these things. There's only these 3 directed by Brad Sykes, and then there's more of them. I don't know. There's even one called It's Alive. You know, It. That's like real. That was a cash in. There's Camp Blood 666. I mean, I'm all over these rather than say watching another Ginger Dead Man or a Evil Bong film.
Yeah, but I don't think you're giving Charles Band his rightful due.
No, I think
look at all the good stuff he did for everyone.
Well, look at that. People can check out that episode of Ghoul School Presents Full Moon Entertainment. So yeah, these are not good, but they're perfect YouTube viewing.
I mean, it sounds like a fun experience. How many of them did you say?
Well, there's 8 of them. I'm 3 in. Only these first 3 are on the YouTubes, though. But Brad Sykes, he's just a guy. You can check out his filmography. Cool dude. I started watching Vulgar, which is a View Askew production, Kevin Smith's production company. This movie stars Dante. He is a children's clown performer type, and this is a movie that like it's got this really cool movie poster that I've always like stuck out in my mind. In fact, I might have even accidentally lifted from it at one point in my art life, and I was like, always like, I never watched that movie, but because I remember the idea of spending $20 blind on this movie when I was in high school was like seemed like a really bad idea when I could buy a Criterion, so I never did watch it. And then I found out it's on Amazon Prime, so I started watching it, and I went, this isn't a horror movie. And then like I know that it turns into like this stupid rape revenge movie where Dante gets raped by men and then he has to get revenge. I'm like,
he does what? Sorry,
he gets raped by men.
Okay.
And then he gets
revenge.
That's
not good.
And then I'm like, nah, I'm good. I don't need to watch a second-rate Kevin Smith production that has Steve Dave in it and written by his buddy. And nope, don't need it. But I found out that movie was shot by a cinematographer who went on to shoot probably TV, but shot the Deadwood movie that just also came out on Blu-ray.
Just by chance.
Yep. And then I watched Stitches, another clown film. This was also on Amazon Prime. This is an Irish movie about a children's clown who is accidentally killed by some kids at a party, and then it jumps ahead and it turns into a really awful, shitty, like teen comedy almost with like teenage kids. But then it's like all building to them having a big party when Stitches the clown comes back to life and starts murdering them. And then you get clown-themed supernatural deaths, like a balloon pump getting hooked up to one of the kids and then their heads expand, which is actually like really good looking because the kid's like, "What's happening?"
Sounds cool.
And it's a ridiculous like thing, but it's awful. Like this was I couldn't stand this thing. Kids like intestines getting ripped out of them and then being twisted around like a balloon dog. It's like a poodle.
A balloon dog?
Yeah, balloon poodle. You know that old trick the clowns do?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but like when you said that, I was like, balloon dog? That sounds so nice. Aww. Like, do you know what I mean? A little balloon dog?
A little balloon dog.
You ever seen a balloon dog, Jer?
No.
Okay.
Can't say as I has.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my dalliance with clowning. Most of the other clown movies I've seen, but I have not seen like in the last 10 years, like Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which is not very good. And I'm pretty sure I don't think it is. It looks cool, but I think it sucks. And the other one is The Funhouse, directed by Tobe Hooper. And I haven't seen that for a while, but I remember it's got some like effective moments, but it's also kind of a drag. But when you see the monstery thing, it's really cool. Yeah. It's really well done.
Yeah, nothing about a Tobe Hooper's clown movie sounds interesting.
Oh, you haven't seen the Funhouse?
No,
well, you got to complete the filmography if you want to have a real opinion on
a real Hooptober. I don't know, dude. Like, I know everyone else is really hot on Tobe Hooper, and I know you have your pockets where you like Tobe Hooper.
Yeah.
But I wasn't into him, you know.
I get it.
It's like I could watch them, but if I watch them and then I just hate it, do you really want to hear me talk about movies I don't like for 20 minutes?
Well, I'll call it Ghoul School or the Criterion Creeps podcast. I don't know.
And then I'll tell you more about movies that I don't like?
No.
Okay. Hey, do you want to hear about more movies I don't like?
Yes.
I'm just kidding. Should I talk for a while, though?
Yep. Go for it.
What should we do here? I have 5 movies left, but I also I can talk about those TV shows if you're interested.
You can even save those for next week.
For Criterion Creep proper? Yeah. Which one, the movies or the shows?
The shows.
Okay, so you want me to tell you about a movie that have you ever heard of What Have They Done to Your Daughters, Jarrett?
Yes.
Yeah, and how have you heard of this movie?
By buying it blind.
Oh, okay. Was this last Creeptober that you watched?
Yes, it was.
It was a blind buy, and you were just like, "Holy fuck, that was good!" Right?
Awesome. This is so good.
Okay, so
it's everything I want in a giallo, like sleaze bay Italian movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this thing screams Jared all over it. By Massimo Dallamano. I threw this thing on, and I remember last year you were just like, you're like, I didn't know what this was, and it was awesome. I threw this thing on, and I was like, I'm gonna see if Jarrett's like on the level with this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the first little while, you get that like hanging teenage body from the things, and it's very clearly like a fake person.
Yes,
but it still looks it looks really good.
Yes,
like, and I think it kind of dips into that uncanny valley stuff where it actually like it's the right kind of uncanny, where it's like it kind of looks real and it makes it look it's like more effective because of how it looks real but also not real, because it looks like a dead person,
because it's shot so well, and it kind of like obscures the fact that it's like that is a fake ass hung person.
That is a fake ass hung person. What's to say about what have they done to your daughters? This is through and through a Jarrett pick. It is sleaze. It is sex rings. It is like things that you watch that make you uncomfortable, and then you're like, I don't know what to think about that. That's what I was thinking a lot when I watched this. I thought this movie was very good. I liked it quite a bit. It is a extremely well-made movie. Like everything about it is put together, I think, really good. Like all those other giallos we were talking about today it's just like, it doesn't have any of that stuff. I do say that I get a little, I mean, obviously the intent is this. I do get a little bit grossed out by like the main story in this, but like that's what they're going for, right? It's like, yeah, guess what? This is a real world where teenagers get prostituted out into sex rings. It's like, this happens. And it's like, yeah, I guess you're right, man. I guess you're right.
And then you have this person on a motorcycle with a helmet who's just butchering people.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like a staple in Creepsville, too. We have guys like that just kind of rove on their own and go around. And I don't know. I don't want to say like too much about it because like as you kind of go through the story, I think it's a fun ride. But it's definitely for where giallos go. I think it is one of the better ones that I've seen recently. It's a very well made movie. It's super uncomfortable content.
And that music.
The music is great. It's uncomfortable content, but it's supposed to be. And then there's also this motorcycle killer running around with this huge blade, and like that dude is pretty cool too. So it was a pretty good show, Jer.
But what about that shot? And I commented this in my original review, and probably back last year, like where there's like the body that's getting moved off of like the gurney, and it's like the naked bottom of the man. It's just like. There's this hanging dick of this have a half body. It's just like, what the fuck?
So that's the other thing is like the way that they like I feel like I'm saying this a lot tonight, but the way that they present the dead bodies in this is so blunt and like in your face. It feels very real. Like the body that's hanging, like. Even though it's a fake body, you're like, whoa, that's kind of like that. It seems it gives off this strange vibe. And then when you have that dismembered man kind of slabbed out on the table, like it's one of those things where it's like other movies try to do stuff like this. And it's whatever. But this one, it's just like these guys slapping this body around. And then you have that woman in there. She's like, show me what happened. And they're like, okay. They're like, if you want to. They don't even try to talk her out of it.
Here it is.
They're like, here you go. And then she's just screaming. And it's like, yeah, that's like probably what would
It's like that scene in Cruising where like they just like pull out the one tray of like the like miscellaneous bits.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got like the blunt nature of how they show this, like all the bodies and stuff like that. You're just like, whoa. And then I think one of the big things too is like the cops aren't like incompetent in this or anything. They're just there kind of doing their thing, and it's believable. You're like, okay, yeah, they're like working at it. They're trying.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was good. Another Jarrett pick from last year. I watched Southbound.
Oh yeah. Horror anthology.
Which you told me I watched on the exact day that you did last year.
Exactly 1 year.
Wasn't intentional, but it happened. So I watched this on Shudder too, and again for convenience because I watched most of it on my TV, and then some of it I watched on my phone, like when I was doing other stuff. I know that sounds bad, but Creeptober, you got to get them in however you can. Right. As far as horror anthologies go, I like the way that this flows so much better than regular horror anthologies. Because like
Starts and stops.
Yeah, the wraparound like connective tissue. I know that that's part of it, and I'll talk about that like when I talk about Creepshow on next week. It's like I realize that there's part of that, and you can do that well too. But I think that this makes so much more sense where stories lead into other ones, and I can see where people would have a problem with that, where it'd be like, well, all these just random stories happen one after the other with these same people, and it's like, so what? Like, it's a fucking anthology movie with crazy shit happening. Like, it doesn't have to. I don't think you have to segment them off to be these different things. I really like the way that they flow into each other on this one. It's got all of the stories I liked. So I like the one with the opening is good, the cold open, because you're like, whoa, what's going on with the specters here? I like them from afar better. They look really cool from afar. And then when you get into the stories, I liked the Stepford wife kind of cult story. That was good. The next one with the dude, the hit and run thing, or not quite hit and run, I thought that one was really good. I was like, I like this a lot. This is kind of
because they go to the
short
hospital,
story,
right?
Yeah, they go to the abandoned hospital, and it's like the people on the phone talking him like through it.
Yes,
I like that one, and then that leads into the demon bar. Also good. I was like, that's pretty cool. I like where this is going, and then that leads into kind of I think I'm missing one, but that also leads into the one that kind of goes back to the first one with the home invasion
back at
thing.
Back at the hotel. There's like a motel back at the motel where they're all because there's all different doors, and then there's like there's like the girls, the rock band with the 1950s people, and then there's the one for like the kid and like the parents or something like that, and there's like it's almost like a home invasion story.
So that's the one that like that loops back into the front. So the rock band girls, that was what I meant like by the Stepford wives kind of thing. But yeah, the one that it's like the kid, that one too is kind of like a swerve, because you feel like when it was starting, I felt like they were talking about something. I thought they were in on something to happen to the girl, and it was like, oh, so it's gonna be one of those, and then it kind of goes a different way, and you're like, oh, that's nice. And that one's a home invasion one.
Right.
But it leads back. You do that story, and then the way it ends, that one cuts you back into the original intro to it. Yeah. Southbound's good, man. I mean, it's a really well put together anthology.
Contemporary horror B material, I guess. Like this is like really well done. Like it's like one of those like real pleasant surprises for me last year, because like you watch these and more often than not it's like ugh.
Yeah.
But this one was like, that was very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like that's what I thought too. I was like, hey, that actually was a good anthology, because I think they do it the right way. Like I said, I like that the stories flow into each other instead of starting and stopping. And it's like, here you go. Here's our movie about hair from John Carpenter, which I like that one too, but you know what I mean.
I know.
With Stacy.
Yeah.
So I got a couple more. Do you want to go for a while?
I'll go for a little bit. I got some vampires things to talk about.
Nice.
So last week, RJ, you sent me a photo of a movie. Not it was a photo, but a movie that you're like, hey, someone that we follow on Letterboxd just watched this. And,
which was that? I don't remember now.
I'm going to find it. I didn't watch that particular one, but it was one of these Gary Whitson films.
Oh, okay.
Oh, what one was it though? And then you're like, yeah, you should watch one of these and find it. And I was like, challenge accepted. But then I discovered almost none of these are available. Oh, Halloween Horrors. That was the one from 92. And then we were looking at this guy's filmography, and it's like, what in the hell is this stuff? Because I've seen them before, and I was like, huh. But I finally am like, this is the right time of year to take it upon myself to check out one of these. And I was only able to find a few. And the one I took the plunge on was Vampire Brides from 1993.
And how was that?
Poor. These are shot on video, made to order, like not even softcore pornography. It's like, so I found out a little bit more. Some guy named God, what is this dude's name? William Hellfire.
Okay.
from New Jersey. So he's a New Jersey trash cinema filmmaker. So he's one of those types. He's making a documentary on this company called Wave Productions, W-A-V-E. And this is like Gary Whitson's company. And basically what they did, as will be covered by this inevitable documentary one day, was they did mail order, like, pseudo, like, horror porn. But these aren't even, like, pornography. It's, like, bad, like, fake bondage stuff where it's like, I'm being strangled by a zombie. I'm being strangled by a vampire in a basement, like in this guy's house.
And then what happens, Jared?
That's it. Like, but it's like I'm being stretched. Like my arms are tied behind my back, and then this guy just like writhes around on top of me, fully clothed. Like it's not sexy at all. It's like not in any way like appealing. And then you're like, oh, this guy made like apparently 300 of these things, and like you paid him the money, and he'd shoot these for you. That's what these things are. For these discerning gentlemen, and this one, Vampire Brides. It's that. It's like doofus vampire. He feels very conflicted about like being a vampire, and he just like again grinds on top of these women that he's like supposedly making love with. These are like, and they're like, there's never like if there's any nudity, it's accidental. And then, but he has like a monstrous like Frankenstein like Igor, and he walks around, stalks about, and they're like, oh no, he's coming. And then he grabs them, then he ties them up in the basement. And that's all this is, over and over again. It's not good. Not good at all.
Oh, not good?
Nope.
Okay.
I will be curious to maybe look at this documentary by William Hellfire. I've looked at his filmography, and yeah, he makes movies that fit right into this worldview of like probably what horror conventions are really like in the States. Where it's just guys like Bill Zabub making movies for discerning gentlemen.
For who? Sorry?
Discerning gentlemen, I'll call them.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds upsetting, to say the least.
I followed this up with a movie that you watched last year, I believe.
I did?
Called Vampires with a Y.
Oh, yeah, that sex movie.
Yeah, that sex movie. You watched this. Didn't seem to be a fan of it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, I think you gave that a big 2.5. And so I was like, well,
baby.
Again, I got this in a box set that Arrow put out. I'm like, well, I mean, I've watched a lot of these vampire lesbian movies from the 70s that were all the craze, and most of them have not been that great. So, well, I don't have high hopes. So I watched this one, and I really liked it. I think this movie's actually
because of the sex.
Honestly, like I found that the presentation of the sexuality was actually was really well done. Like it actually felt like, oh, these people have chemistry, even though it's like not like, wow, like I'm watching a couple make out. This is really cool. It's like, no, it felt like, oh, this actually felt genuine. Like, it's because like the idea is, it opens up with the two vampire girls. They were like, lovers making out, and then some man showed up and shot them dead. And you don't know, there's no context. You don't really know, like, was he a spurned lover, or like, was this a hate crime in olden times? They don't really say it. So they're dead. And then the movie jumps to like these women, they're hanging out on the side of roads, like basically the same road by this castle they live in. And they're hitchhikers. They get picked up by men, and then these men are gullible, and like these ladies are pretty sexy, and they get brought back to the castle. They get like boozed up, fed, sexed, and then they get their blood drank, and then they're like killed, and then they get dumped in their car further down the road, and the pattern repeats itself. And you wonder, how can they get away with this for so long? Like, wouldn't eventually the police be like, hey, there's all these guys that are like constantly driving their cars into trees, like on this same stretch of road. Maybe we should put some signs up, maybe put some better lighting. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I remember this movie now.
There's those elements. So we're following this one man. He seems like he's got like a real like bug up his butt, but it seems like the one woman, I think it's Marianne Morris, the brunette.
Okay.
They seem to have like a bit more of an energy, and they don't really get into what that is. But it seems like she's not just like outright just killing him. She's kind of just made a slice in his like in the open part of his arm, and like so it's like she's drinking off of it. And these are vampires that don't have like the fangs. They just lick and drink. But so we have this like kind of whole setup, and it's very slow. They don't like have like they basically they don't have coffins. They sleeping down in the basement. They just sleep like in like on sheets like on the floor of this old dungeon, or they go to the graveyard. And it's like there's always like, oh, we have to get back before the sun comes out. But it's like being shot in daylight almost, like early morning. So you're like, the sun's out already. You guys should be burning. They don't touch into that. So it plays really loose with the mythos. There's also this couple that's like decided to like park with their trailer right near the castle because the one girl is painting this castle for whatever reason. And so they're kind of like just party to this all going on while this guy's getting his blood drank. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I enjoy this sex and this wine. This is like
He does
the best wine of all time. But like, there's something really weird going on here. What really like put this movie at a different level for me though was like how really creepy the blood feasts are. So there's like other guys that are also being victimized by these women who are like they get the sex, but then like the blonde, she's a lot more like she doesn't give a shit. She's just like, yeah, we're in this together. What are you doing keeping this guy around? It's like, let's just go eat these people. And so this one guy, the brunette comes along. She gets like that smell of blood in the air, and she finds her way over there. And you see this guy, and he's just like fucked up on this bed. And the one, she's like this, and they go into a blood frenzy, and they're just jumping on top of this guy and just like sucking on him and biting him. And then they're like pulling out daggers and stabbing people to death. And you're like, fuck. And it's like so weird because the frenzy of it is just like not played in this campy sort of way with sound effects and like kind of like a Hammer movie does with their vampires, which is like, it's got a charm, but it's very phony, where this has like like it's handled in this just the right way where I was like, fuck. Like, and every time they did it, I'm like, man, like they really feel like animals. Like they feel like weird, like supernatural creatures. And it's like, yeah, that's a bit more like eerie to me than how a lot of these movies handle it. But anyway, it's like very, again, it's a 70s European movie. The guy directed it, Jose Ramon Larraz, Spanish guy. He directed a movie I watched a year or two ago called Symptoms, which I thought was like also like real, like I thought it was really, really good. Vampires is like just right below that. He also directed this movie called Edge of the Axe that desperately needs to be re-released on Blu-ray, which I think is coming really soon, because I watched this on VHS and it didn't do anything for me, but it has some of the most awesome like death scenes. They're like so well done. Like but it has these like lulls, but then it has these real highs, but lots of lulls. And he has this other sweet looking movie called Black Candles that I'd want to check out. But
that I've seen that too. That looks awesome.
Yeah, it's got that Satanist thing going on. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I really liked Vampires. I was like kind of like, yeah, I don't know why RJ didn't like this, but I'm not surprised because he's not a fan of that sexuality.
No, I would like it to be taken out of everything.
Yeah,
as you know. No, I don't really remember what my beef with vampires was. I think I was just
bored by it.
I was just bored by it. Probably
that's kind of why I remember you being not into it, and that's fair. Yeah. Sometimes the movies don't work for you, like particularly these types. But fortunately for me, it worked out just great.
Some days it doesn't click, you know.
That's very true.
That's it.
I follow this up with this movie called Spider. It's a Russian movie, which I didn't really know.
Okay.
It's more of like a fantasy horror. It's about this beautiful young woman who becomes the target of the obsessions of this creepy painter with a ponytail who wants her to be his Madonna in his Annunciation painting. Yeah. And she's like, no, you're creepy. And then she goes to his studio and is very bohemian and weird and like dark, because he's a dark artist with dark visions like a Geiger. And then she has visions though of him being like a tarantula man. And then she leaves and doesn't want to have anything to do with the painting. But then she starts having these really intense dreams. So she's like a 16-year-old girl. Starts having these really intense like adolescence coming into her own womanhood dreams of being like ravaged by like these like ridiculous spider like monsters,
Ugh.
and with his face. It's like it's a
Gross.
really well like it's shot. It's a full frame movie, but it's like I don't know what's up with this Blu-ray, or like what the state of the actual film elements are. But I found like the contrast and stuff like that was really odd. Like there's scenes that are way too dark and way too overblown. But I also think that was intentional for this movie. Like it wanted to have this Tarkovsky kind of look. It kind of like it's cool. I kind of like this idea of the movie, but it's not a movie I'm like there's a reason why no one really talks about this, but I'm really glad that Mondo Macabro, who releases movies exactly like this, like kind of off the wall Euro, like international movies that are kind of horror but also dramas and like really great looking, but at the same time they don't have that right vibe. They're no Possession is what I'm kind of getting at.
I think I follow.
Yeah.
To a bit.
A little bit. Well, I got RJ. I've got 2, 4, 6, 8 potential movies to talk about. I definitely want to talk about 2 because they are.
Okay, why don't you talk about those 2?
Okay, I'll skip ahead because I don't know if I need to talk about The Carpenter, starring Wings Hauser, a Canadian film where he's like a ghost. No, I'll talk about it very quickly.
Fine.
He's a ghost, and there's a woman. It's a woman who's kind of gone insane, and her husband's like kind of tolerating it, but now he's also having an affair, banging one of his students, because that's what these creeps do. He's kind of gaslighting her a little bit, but they're building. So she's had a mental breakdown. She's kind of like trying to rehabilitate and get back into life, and they're doing renovations on a new house that he just bought out in the country, kind of like in a nice little area in the suburbs. And of course what happens, there's an old story that this like hilarious sheriff comes by to tell the main actress, there was a crazy carpenter who lived here who killed a bunch of people and then he died. And it's like, well, it's probably this Wings Hauser ghost slasher, because there's scenes where he just like uses like bandsaws and whatnot, and he like circle saws to like cut off men's arms who just stand there and let their arms get cut off, and then he disposes of the body offhand. There's a lot of that. This movie's like okay. It had a nice vibe to watch it with, but it was I was expecting more like a Wishmaster type of experience, and it was like almost like a straight drama, like a Canadian horror movie I guess would usually be, where it has like a seriousness to it, and it has Wings Hauser being weird. There's a really great montage where like they're not playing up to the fact that like, hey, this guy is definitely not real, but it's like, is it a figment of her imagination or is it a ghost? And it's a ghost. He's a killer ghost who's getting more powerful as the house rebuilds itself. It's actually kind of like Hellraiser in a lot of ways, where he's like a parasitic ghost feeding off of her yearning for love, and he's giving it to her, and as she believes in him more, he becomes more real, and he's able to build the house back up. There's this awesome montage of every time like they're having this conversation, he has a different like piece of the house that he's building and working on, like a door, working on a birdhouse. Every time they cut back and forth over the course of like, dialogue. Really a good little gag, RJ.
I know about gags.
I watched Creature, a William Malone movie.
Ooh, girl.
A total Alien knockoff. So it's in space. I think the only movie we've watched so far that's been in space.
So far.
This movie's not good at all.
Oh, okay.
It's got like a couple pretty cool, like, it's got a head explosion that looks okay, but the alien stinks. It's such a failure at trying to make a xenomorph, but trying not to, and it's so cheap, and it makes you really appreciate what you get when Stan Winston's on duty making cool looking monsters. This thing is just like they shoot it in the dark and they don't want you to see it. We were also watching I was watching this with Corey and Bryant as well as well as Carpenter, but this movie, it's nonsense. It's got Klaus Kinski. He shows up as a West German astronaut who's gone a little crazy, and it's got a non-ending. Yeah, it stinks. This movie stunk. Aliens suck, RJ.
Aliens are the only good thing we have going, Jarrett. The only one.
Okay. I'll get there.
Okay.
I watched this movie called Satan's Baby Doll.
Okay.
This was presented to me knowingly as a nunsploitation pornography.
Okay.
I was watching this, RJ, late at night, down in the basement. I fell asleep. It was like, I wasn't even like necessarily bored. I was just also very tired. And I was like, okay, so this is like a nun thing, and there's like bad nuns, and there was like some people, devil worshippers got taken care of, but maybe it was all made up. Cool. They're all talking in rooms, and it all looks the same. And I'm like, where's the porno? It's like, oh, there's like a naked woman just like pleasuring herself, writhing around, belly up. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And then I fall asleep, and then I wake up, and I'm like, oh, that's a penis being sucked by that woman. And then I went back to sleep, and then I woke up, and the movie was over, and I'm like, what the fuck? And then I proceeded to
Sounds like a Jarrett pick.
I started going back. So this poster, you look at the movie poster of this, it's got this like big Satan demon taking this woman. And like she's on mounting him. And you're like,
taking how? Taking where? To like the store?
To sensually, sexually. And you're like, God. Oh shit, are we gonna get like a big ass prosthetic demon like raping nuns? Like, I want to see what that looks like. No. Nothing like that of the sort. I skimmed through this the next morning, be like, well, did I miss anything? You're like, nope. Here's a whole lot of scenes of people talking. And you're like, oh wait, there's a guy in a wheelchair, and now she's like giving him a blowjob. And then I skim ahead of some more, and then I'm like, oh wait, here's another bit where she's giving some other guy a blowjob. And you're like, oh, here's some like full on penetration shots. And I went, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, this movie is whatever. I'm like, I don't know what I was expecting. I'm an idiot. I don't know. Like, what did I think?
Can I get a soundbite of that?
I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we play the game here, Jared.
It's roulette. You know, you don't know what you're going to get. And you're just like, yeah, this is a really dry, drab,
you never
exploitation thing where you're like, man, I want some demon sex, but no.
Yeah.
I got to watch my anime for that, I guess. Just to see what it looks like. Yeah. I'm curious. It's not like I'm into this. I'm not like, getting anything out of it beyond like visual, like, man, I've never seen that before. And you're like, oh, no, just that, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's like I said.
So I had
we play the game.
I had to make up. I had to correct for Satan's Baby Doll. So I watched Satan's Slave, released by Vinegar Syndrome. Ooh. This is where our It's Wednesday, My Dudes post comes from. The image of a man who's been stabbed in the eye.
Nice.
This is another Satanist movie. This movie is British. It is directed by Norman G. Warren, the man who brought us Prey, who brought us Inseminoid, which is actually not too bad. But Satan's Slave is a sleepy affair. It is very uninvolving. It's about, I don't know.
Okay.
There's a review someone mentioned. It's like, I was thinking about Stephen Thrower mentioning how like Satanists are just Christians who dress in robes, and I went, yeah, they're boring. They're boring no matter how you cut it. This is just like a bunch of rich people who are like dressing in robes, like doing the Rosemary's Baby gaslight treatment of like, oh, did you really see that? Oh, but no, we are going to sacrifice you because you're going to either give birth to the Antichrist, or we just need to sacrifice you because of your blood lineage to blah, blah, blah. And it's just, Michael Gough is in this, and he just looks like somewhere a cross between like Uncle Monty and Ian McKellen. That's all I could think of.
Okay.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's what Satanists probably do look like. And he's got like a nephew. And like, immediately from the top of the movie that these guys are Satanists. But they keep like trying to swerve you. Like, maybe they're not. You're like, no, you've already shown them as being pieces of shit at the beginning of the movie. Why are you trying to trick me now? Just, again, blind buy, regret.
Our whole life is regret, Jared. Don't you know that?
Okay, RJ, back to you.
I have a couple, but I mean, I could probably save them. I don't have too much to, I don't know how my watching is going.
We're almost there. I got my creep picks I got to hit, but you can do whatever you got left.
I'll just talk about Little Devils real briefly. You ever heard of Little Devils: The Birth?
No.
I don't know where this movie came from. I don't know. Oh, it's the director of Rawhead Rex.
Oh.
Okay. So George Pavlou. So there's this movie called Little Devils: The Birth. It's on YouTube for free. This is a super strange movie. So you start off, you get this like Poindexter science nerd, and he's in like this temple, and there's these guys that are like boiling like ketchup and barbecue sauce. Like that's what it looks like. There's this like boiling red matter, and he's scooping it out in buckets, and he goes back to his apartment, and he's like taking it upstairs, and the landlady, she like owns the apartment complex, and she's like, you're a real piece of shit. You always get like dirt all over the floors, and like, what are you doing up there? You always stink. And he's like, oh, and like runs away. So what happens next is like you see this guy like leaves his apartment and he gets confronted by mobsters, and they're just like, "You owe us money, kid. You gotta pay the money. Oh,
Make with the cash.
make with the cash, kid. Oh," and they're like gonna cut his fingers off, and his neighbor like kind of like stumbles upon it, and he's like, "Oh, geez, I didn't see you guys there." And they're like, "We gonna have a problem, guy?" And he's like, "No, he's I live with right next door to this guy." And they're like, "Well, he owes us money." And he's like, "Okay, how much?" And they're like, $200. And he's like, "All right, I'll pay for it." So he like pays them, and then through the course of it, like the tough guy, the goon, the heavy, like the guy who pays for it writes a check, and he's like, "Oh, are you this guy?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's me." He's like, "I love your comic book, man." And he pulls the comic book out of his pocket. He's like, "Will you sign it for me?" So you're introduced to this new character who's a comic book artist, Jared, and he is our protagonist for this movie. So he talks to the guy who's gonna get his fingers cut off. He's like, "What were you doing up there?" And he's like, Nothing. I'll see you later." So you watch Science go upstairs, and he takes the sludge out of the buckets, and he's making like figurines out of it. Like he's just dripping it like into like little gremlin-y things, but he's also kind of like just putting it all over his body. And you're like, all right, let's see where this goes. So then you go back to comic book artist, and he has a friend who is a cowboy doctor, is the only way I can describe it. He's a doctor, but he's this cowboy. And the cowboy doctor's like, "Why don't you come with me? I think you might learn something good." And he's like, "Okay." So they go to this band of homeless men, Jarrett. It's this like hobo community, and they're talking to all these homeless men. And there's this nice lady there who's really nice, and she like helps out. And the comic book guy's like, "Hey, do you want to like go on a date with me?" And she's like, "Oh, you don't know? Oh." And then the cowboy doctor's like, "Hey," and he's like, "What do you mean?" And the cowboy doctor's like, "I'll show you." He's like, "You'll see what we're talking about." And then it cuts to a strip club, and the girl works at the strip club, and she's a stripper. So the joke is that no one would date a stripper, kind of. And like that he asked her out, and she's like, "I gotta work tonight." And he's like, "Where do you work?" So they watch her strip for a while, and then the dude is like really into it. And then he goes home, and then the landlord lady, she really likes him, and she offers herself to him in her underpants, Jarrett.
What?
Her underpants. And he's not into that, so he leaves. But then, so the lady's like pissed off, so she goes and yells at Science for a while. And then she goes back. Science animates the slime into gremlin monsters. And I guess that's what the little devils are. I don't know what the birth is referring to, because none of these things are really birthed. I don't know what that means.
This is like the beginning of a series?
I guess. Or it's the fact that he gives these things life. The only way I could describe this, it's like Gremlins and Puppet Master, kind of. And it's I'm not gonna lie to you, Jarrett. It's not bad.
Okay.
Like it's not good or by any means,
Okay.
but like it was entertaining enough to watch, like for my purposes.
Okay.
So the gremlins come to life, and then they go start killing people, and then it's like whatever. So that stuff's not that good. But then there's like, it's really weird. There's two moments in this movie where the gremlins like brutally murder people. Like there's a full body burn, which I know you like. Yeah. And you're just like, whoa, okay. And then another scene is just a full head burn. Just the guy's head is completely on fire for real. And I was like, that's not one you see that often. Like just head burns. So I was like, that's kind of cool. But Little Devils the Birth is it's a strange movie because of like all these different things that they have stacked against it or into it, but it has some interesting parts. I liked the full head burn. That was cool.
No, I'm not familiar with this movie at all. I don't know if I'm sold on it necessarily, but I'll take it under advisement.
It's not like, it's like I said, I got enjoyment out of it, but I don't see other people listening to this. I don't see anyone else liking this thing. This is not for other people, but if any of that stuff I just brought up sounds at all like interesting to you, then you might like Little Devils the Birth.
All right then.
Yeah.
All right.
What do you got?
I'm gonna wrap us up here.
Okay.
So I got 2 Creeps picks out of the way.
Okay.
All right. So first up, The Lift.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Day Lift.
Day Lift.
From one Dick Moss.
Ooh, I see.
And let me say that I think of Dick Moss as a monster of horror.
I would agree. He sounds like a good dude.
This Lift, people shit on this movie real hard. They fucking like just think this is just garbage. Like it's a B movie so bad it's good. Like they're all over this thing. It's ridiculous. Right. This movie's like, I love this movie. Like I have a soft spot for like this era though of 1980s European cinema. There's something about the film stock that was being used, the look of the people, the way these movies are kind of told. It's like they're reprocessing American stuff and like putting it back out there. I've been labeling these things as Eurovision on my my letterbox. If people want to take a look at what I mean by this particular aesthetic. But these movies have it in spades because I watched The Lift and I watched Dick Moss's Amsterdammed, which was a Sam Sanchez pick. And yeah, both these movies just like checked all my boxes. The Lift, nice. It is about a killer elevator, and it does not play like the movie you'd expect. It's got some like really well done like builds to the deaths and stuff like that, and tension. Like I was like genuinely like, whoa. This is so much better than I ever expected a killer elevator would be. Because in your mind, you're like, no, just don't go on the elevator, and the movie ends. But yeah, no.
Is it kind of like Devil, the M. Night Shyamalan movie?
I hope not.
Okay.
So this movie,
but could it be though?
This movie has been remade with Naomi Watts, like 10 years later by Dick Moss.
What was it called?
Down, aka The Shaft. And apparently that's really bad. But now I don't trust people. I don't trust people when they're talking about Dick Moss because they're dumping on him all the time.
I see.
And he directed a movie called Saint from like 2010, which is like a Christmas horror movie. And I'm like, well, shit. I'm going to have to check that out later this year. And then I'm not going to get too much into these movies because you should definitely be checking them out. And then I watched Amsterdammed. And this movie is also awesome. These are so Dutch. This is a Dutch giallo. It's about a man in a wetsuit going around the canals of Amsterdam killing people. It's cool.
That sounds cool.
It's the opening is awesome. I don't know if the movie ever lives up to like the opening like 5-10 minutes because they're like pretty like it's something out of a Brian De Palma movie, and then it turns into kind of like a police procedural, and it has one of like. It's got a pretty amazing chase sequence involving speedboats in the canal system of Amsterdam. It's like it's so well done. I liked like so much about these movies. It's got the same two actors. The two leads are the same between The Lift and Amsterdammed. And yeah, I am very happy to finally have watched both of these movies. I watched Amsterdammed on Shudder, and I will be ordering that on Blue Underground Blu-ray soon because I got that Lift Blu-ray blind. That was a blind buy, just on Oliver's word, and it paid off. Ooh.
So they the Creepers they actually made good.
They did finally. Nice. For once.
For once they did something.
What I really want, I want more recommendations, people. Next week, in the next 2 weeks, you got like when you listen to this, give us some real picks, not bullshit. I'm not fucking watching radio.
Why not, Jarrett?
Because no.
Jarrett,
it's my life. We're talking here.
Okay. Like Bon Jovi?
So I got a giallo. I got a Spanish giallo. It's called Corruption of Chris Miller. This is Vinegar Syndrome. This movie involved everybody in this movie, and there's not that many characters. They're horrible pieces of shit, which is interesting. They're really loathsome people. Everyone's got a bad idea. Everything is horrible in this movie. It's not too bad. It actually reminds me of the aforementioned Prey. It's about like, I don't know, there was this era of like British dudes drifting into your house and you let them stay with you, even though you should probably just kick them the fuck out. And it's like two women living in a house. It's like what's going on in the 70s? Was this like a thing? All these like really charismatic dudes with like Mick Jagger hair and like we're told are really sexy. Like they're just putting the moves on everybody. But this movie, RJ, it's got a scene I can only refer to as featuring Scythe Man.
I saw Scythe
Yeah,
Man. He looked pretty interesting.
There's a guy shows up in this movie late in the game. I call him Scythe Man.
Mm-hmm.
He shows up with like a raincoat, like fucking goggles, and he's got a goddamn scythe, and he just butchers this family. And it's like so awesome. Like, it just comes out of nowhere. And you're like, what the fuck was that? Like, I want more Scythe Man. And then you don't really see Scythe Man ever again. It's a real bummer. But that Scythe Man scene's cool. And then the kind of the payoff to this movie is very similar to my favorite scenes in Vampires. It's like this like just long death sequence that's like really well done and like gruesome and like in the right way. And you're like, oh, that was pretty cool. But I'm not in love with this movie, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I've seen some people like lose their mind over it, but I think it's like because I think everybody loves that Scythe Man, the real winner of this month so far.
The real winner,
Dick Moss,
Scythe Man.
Dick Moss, and Scythe Man.
I can get down with all of that.
My last movie that I'll talk about is Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. So this is a sequel only in name to Prom Night. This is a Canadian horror film starring Michael Ironside and a bunch of other people you've never seen before. And this movie just recounts the tale of this, like, I don't know, loose young woman who becomes prom queen. And a loose young woman. She's kind of sleeping around. She's proud of it because she's trying to, like, get everyone's, like, attention because she really wants to be the goddamn prom queen. And this is like the very beginning of the movie. And then her boyfriend does not like this and decides to like throw a stink bomb, cherry bomb at her as she gets her like crown.
Nice.
But she starts on fire, and we get a full body burn, and it's awesome. And so that goes down, and then we jump ahead, and it turns into like, oh, it's a high school thing, but then the spirit of Mary Lou, the full body burn girl, she comes back and she's gonna run like it's like a cross somehow between Carrie and Freddy Krueger. If you're feeling me,
I think I understand. Yeah, Carrie Krueger.
Yeah, Carrie Krueger. Carrie Krueger's at it. This movie, like, man, it blew me away how many like awesome visuals and deaths this movie has. This is on Amazon Prime. It's only full frame. This is a movie that like Scream Factory needs to put out immediately in like a proper edition. I'm sure they'd love to, but it's probably tied up in stupid rights. Maybe that like now seemingly dead Vestron collector series will put it out because they need to. Because this movie, like, I think, is a underappreciated horror gem. Like it's got so much cool stuff going on. It is like a death that I was like genuinely shocked by because you're like, oh, this girl's hiding in a locker. What could possibly happen to her? And then it happens. You're like, fuck.
I don't know if you know this, but this was a Joe Bob film on a last drive-in last year. So although it is not available in Canada.
Oh, of course,
for some reason.
Of course not. Why would it be?
Because like there's all these movies that are not available under like I don't know what it is. Like it's like I was saying, like with that Phantasm 2 thing. There's a bunch of movies that I feel like I see, like they tweet it. They're like, this movie's going to be on Joe Bob, but not only one of the two that we're watching tonight.
Not in Canada.
Not number 2. So this was like the last movie they did on the last season, but we didn't get it in Canada. So I would have loved to have seen what Joe Bob would have had to say about this movie.
Yeah. Oh, I think this is actually a really pretty decent little horror movie.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds cool. Yeah. I would like to check it out.
Have you seen Prom Night 1?
No, but that's on Amazon Prime too.
No, well, it's got some good discoing.
I'm into disco.
Yeah, it's got a pretty good. It's got a cool vibe. Some people are not super into that movie, but it's got enough like nice energy to it. And this movie has zero to do with it, but it's I mean, it's like so far the Prom Night franchise is shaping up pretty good. I think there's a big nosedive with 3 and 4, but
yeah,
that's what happens. But that's it. I think that's it.
I think we're good for now, yeah, and we can fill in people next week, I guess.
Well, next week we have to watch like Criterion movies.
Lame.
What are we watching next week? Let's take a look.
Who knows?
I know there's 2 of them. Il Posto, Hermano Olmi, and the Fiancés, also Hermano Olmi. Who knows? They might be nice movies.
Yeah, they might be, but you know how we feel about Criterions that we have to watch during Creeptober.
I'm aware.
Not good.
RJ,
Yes.
I have cat vomit to clean up. Here.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, so I'm going to go do that.
All right, well, I guess I'll see you later.
Creep it real.
Creep it real, buddy.
Bye, folks.
See you later.
Good night.